I was feeling into it an hour ago, and now I just have to bring myself back to that mental clarity space. The Brothers Bloom is a movie that I watched yesterday.
Rachel Weiss, Rachel Weiss, and Adrian Brody, and Mark Ruffalo.
And whoever that Japanese, I'm assuming, girl is. I'm a robot meditator. Brother sibling movie.
Yeah. Welcome, friends and chosen family, to Brother Sibling Movie, a podcast where two siblings, that's us, talk about movies we loved from our childhoods, and some we may be discovering for the very first time, centered around a different theme every season.
I'm your brother, Evan Kerna.
And I'm your sibling, Mare Morgan.
And this week's movie is The Brothers Bloom, an unsung 2008 masterpiece about two conmen brothers grappling with the question of whether or not it's possible to feel true love after a lifetime of grifting.
It is also a film that takes full advantage of Adrian Brody's sad boy era, Mark Ruffalo's roguish charms, and Rachel Weisz's capacity for cuteness overload in the extreme.
I think it's Weiss. It's like Ray Fiennes, right? I think she's Welsh.
I don't fucking know these people.
I don't know.
You know who we're talking about.
You do know who we're talking about. And if you can't tell from the title of the movie, this season's theme is one very near and dear to our hearts: siblings.
And as soon as we discussed the possibility of doing a season whose theme was siblings, I think the first movie that both you and I put down was The Brothers Bloom. I think this was like...
Was it? I definitely don't remember what the first one was, but it was up there in the top for sure for me.
It was like immediate. This is... so that kind of leads us into talking about like our connection to this movie. So it came out in 2008.
Yeah.
I was 18 and you were 21, I think.
I was just finishing college. Yeah, I would have been in between. I'm probably finishing my junior year of college.
I watched this movie for the first time probably when I was 19 or so. So like a little after it came out, after I'd been stateside for a minute and was like reacquainting myself with the English language. But this is a movie that I remember specifically because you and I were talking one day and you were like, oh my God, Mary, you've got to watch this movie called The Brothers Bloom. I have a lifelong obsession with Adrian Brody. We'll just get that out of the way now. I have a lifelong obsession with him. I cannot stop. I can't be helped. There's nothing to do. It's just here.
Yes. We love you for it.
But you told me about this movie, and I think somehow what I remember you saying to me was like, Mary, you have to watch this movie. This is one of the best movies ever made. And of course...
That sounds like what I would have said when I saw it, yes. And it's probably what I'm going to tell you right now.
It's probably what I agree with you on. I watched it then, and I loved it. Yeah. But of course, of course, I'm like younger sibling. I'm like, if my brother says it's the best movie ever made, it must be one of the best movies ever made. And you actually were right this time, unlike the time you fucking dragged us to see Tomorrowland.
Now, see, that one I had not seen first, so I was just assuming it was going to be good based on perfectly legitimate evidence of past things, right? It's like George Clooney, directed by Brad Bird. Brad Bird had not made a single misstep in his entire directing career up to that point. There was no reason to think that this was going to be a piece of shit, but it was. I dragged my whole family to it. I convinced them to watch it instead of a different movie. It was Christmas. Our cousin was there. It was very embarrassing, and I was very mad about it.
But
so
you know
screw
what?
you, Brad Bird. I love you, Brad Bird.
You
still do great things, but Tomorrowland, I don't know. I'd love to talk to you one day. Yeah, I lost a little.
In front of his entire family after being like, I'm a film person, I know film. But don't worry, I had those little 8-ounce mason jars full of vodka cranberries. I had like 6 of them,
Because
and we
that's how
just
we do it in our family at the holidays and every other day. Every day's a holiday in our family.
when
Just
your mother
bringing the booze everywhere.
when your
This is
mother
not
has
something to be proud of, kids.
it's not. When your mother has the fabled quote of if we should start drinking, and she says it's 11 o'clock somewhere, as in AM, as in it's so much before 11 AM that it's 11 AM somewhere else. That's not.
We've got a problem.
Sean
Um,
Sean and I still say that to each other. Okay, let's get back to
it's
this
11
movie.
a.m. somewhere. Yes.
Evan,
But
tell me your connection to the Brothers Bloom, because this is, to me, this is like an Evan movie. This is, I think about you every time I watch it.
oh,
It
that's nice.
it's interlocked in my brain, the two.
Yeah.
Everything.
So I can't really remember like what it when how I saw it. Like I'm pretty sure I watched it on like DVD. Like I probably didn't even go to see it in the theaters. I suspect that this movie suffered from a bad marketing campaign
I agree.
because it's too interesting and good and intelligent for marketing people to do anything good with.
Yeah.
Um, but I watched this movie shortly after it came out, sometime when I was in college, and all I really remember about it is that it was one of those movies that reminded me why I love movies. Um, it follows in kind of like a long line of movies from this era because I feel like as a child we had movies on VHSs that I would watch over and over,
Mm,
but as a once I was getting into my early 20s, I didn't really watch movies over again. I think because I
mhm.
was in film school at the time, I just felt like there were so many movies to watch and so much stuff to catch up on that around this era from like 2006 to 2015, I wasn't really like rewatching movies. So I'm also reminded of like Her, which is another like movie that I loved when I first saw it, and I just haven't seen it since. So this is an incredible opportunity for me to actually watch this movie that I had a very strong connection to and instantly loved, and watch it again for the first time since seeing it, which is awesome. Um, and I'm happy to say that it holds up super well, and it
Oh,
is kind of like this movie is like genetically engineered to every single one of my taste buds for cinema. In fact,
I
there's also this great movie called Submarine, which was directed by Richard
Richard
Ayoade.
Ayoade. I love Submarine. That's another
Yeah,
movie that like no one has seen, and it's
I know. Yeah,
brilliant.
that one really caught me off guard. I was like, I love this movie. So yeah, Brothers Bloom, Submarine, Her, all movies kind of more or less from that era that just really
They
meant something big to me, but then I never really rewatched a second time. So all three of those I feel like I'm gonna have a renaissance of this time of my life where I was
I
just imbibing things that connected with me very strongly.
I hope that when we do a coming of age season, because we were gonna do
Hmm.
it at some point, I really hope that we do Submarine, because that's another movie similar to Brothers Bloom. You and I were
Hmm.
talking about this, like, I I feel like I talk to people about this movie because I'm like, the cast is amazing, the directing's amazing, the writing's fantastic, it's such a fun story, it's
Yeah,
visually exciting, it's all of the things. It has a great score, like it's everything. And like no one has seen it. And it's not
I know. It's this one actually, like, you can argue that The Fifth Element is like a cult classic or whatever, and these other movies that we're like, it doesn't get the recognition it deserves. Uh, uh,
this
uh,
one
uh,
literally
this one
doesn't.
literally I
No
feel like
one
no one has watched or heard about, and
well,
it's crazy because it's so good and meaningful and well crafted and fun and deep too, just as far as character relationships are
yeah.
developed in it. And it's like this should be a classic, in my opinion.
It
But again, I think it suffered from bad marketing at the time, where nobody, you know, saw
yeah.
it when it came out.
Well, and this is going to kind of lead in a little to our next section where we just want to kind of gush about Adrian Brody and Mark Ruffalo for a second, who are the two
Yeah.
main characters. But
Yes.
it's so it's so this era, right, is kind of 2008, like I feel like between 2006, 5, 6 and like
Mhm.
2000, yeah, like 11 or 12, there's this really specific era of cinema.
Mhm.
And Her is a good example of it. Submarine is a good example of it. This movie, I Heart Huckabees,
Oh,
uh,
yes, I
The
think I
Life.
Heart Huckabees is 2004, so a little bit
It's a
before,
little
but, you know,
early, but
it's
like
all kind of to me, it's all sort of like early aughts cinema. It
it's
kinda like
kind of
it starts with, like, I don't know, I mean, this one maybe hasn't aged quite as well, but, like, Garden State, I mean, I don't
well,
know.
so
Uh
I okay, so I kind of lump okay, there is an aesthetic that I think you could lump this Brothers Bloom and Garden State into a similar vibe.
Mhm. Yeah, totally.
And
There was a thing going on at that time among many filmmakers that
yeah,
you
and
have
it
a
was
feeling of the era.
you do have a feeling of the era and and these are not movies, none of those movies are ones that had like C-list celebrities. Like they had like big names attached to them and they were kind of on this like semi indie budget, right? Where they're
Mhm.
not like big budget. They're kind of this like almost they have an indie flavor, but they have enough clout to get like some amount of release. Um
Yeah. Yeah,
and
all those movies at least had theatrical releases, but the degree to whether or not there were people flocking to see them is up for interpretation.
right,
I mean,
and because
Marvel really starts to take over the cinematic landscape circa 2008,
2008.
I think, if I'm
Yeah,
not
so
mistaken.
Iron Man 1 came out in 2008, I think.
That's
So
right, yeah.
same year as this, so that might also have been part of the problem. Um, but it's funny because, like, Adrian Brody, I think this was fairly soon after he won an Academy Award for The Pianist.
Mhm, yeah.
Within a year or two, Mark Ruffalo had been on the scene for forever. Rachel Weiss was doing a lot of stuff. Like everybody in this movie is an incredible, like I would say, like A-list celebrity, and it really doesn't get the clout it deserves. I
Yeah.
do want to talk about
Yes. The
Mark
Pianist came
Ruffalo.
out in 2002.
Fucking Jesus, I'm bad at time. Really?
Hon
It came out in
honestly
2002? I thought it came out in like 2006.
yeah, I had to check because I did not know when the hell it came out. Yeah, to be perfectly honest, this whole era, while there are movies that, um, I love from this era, like, the 2000s, especially the early 2000s, like 2000 to 2010, and probably even up to, like, 2014, 15, when it comes to movies, because like, 20th century and pre 1999, I feel like I have a pretty decent knowledge of like
Yeah.
release days and timing of things, maybe because to me it was still
Mhm.
history. But like when it comes to
Right.
living history, that sort of 15-year stretch, I'm still kind of redeveloping my sense of the timeline since I
Well, I
lived
think
through it. I was just young and experiencing it, and I didn't have a. So
I
I
know.
don't
I
know, for whatever
I think it's
reason, I
hard.
don't have a strict that dates of that era don't stick in my head for things. It was all just kind of like a mishmash of just like stuff that I was imbibing, you know?
Yeah, because I mean, that was like those air that 2010 to 15. I mean, that was like middle school, high school, college age for both of us, off and on. But yeah,
I had graduated college by 2009, but yeah, it's like yeah, but you
oh,
know,
you
early
did.
20s for sure.
Shit. Fuck, you're old.
Hell
Um,
yeah, baby. Uh, Before we start gabbing on Mark and Adrian, I want to kind of issue a little bit of a. It's not a retraction, but it's an addition. We'll call it additional information. I was chatting to our one and only guest from last season, Rachel Rush,
Rachel.
and Rachel pointed out to me she was watching The Karate Kid and realized, which is also an incredible movie and like is in the sort of like pantheon of blockbusters that
Sure.
are incredible screenplays and well done, and I love Karate Kid. I'm not the only one, obviously, but that screenplay she mentioned to me was written by Robert Mark Kamen, the same person who wrote wait for it, The Fifth Element. So there
What?
is there is a reason that they are both as good as they are.
Holy shit!
In the screenplay stage,
Thanks,
yes, Robert Mark
Rachel.
Kamen. So way to go. He also did the entire Transporter series with Jason Statham and Taken with Liam Neeson.
Fuck.
So I just thought I would add that as a little additional line because as soon as she said that to me, I was like, oh, I wish that had gotten
I
onto the
know.
pod. What a cool little piece of
Shit.
trivia. So,
That is
but now
cool.
we know,
Wow.
and now you, our listeners, know too.
Now you know too.
Yeah. So should we
I
get to
want
just talking about Mark and Adrian?
I want to talk about Adrian Brody and I want to talk about Mark Ruffalo. They're very important to me personally as a
So
person who does not know them.
So, Mayor, I just have to ask, how many times did Adrian Brody's sad, sad eyes make you have to pause the movie and gaze directly into them?
Honestly, it's a 2-hour long movie and it took me 3 hours to watch it because
I'm not surprised.
I just
I'm not
couldn't
surprised.
stop. I just couldn't stop. He's so tall and gangly and sad and he has a big like hook no I just like oh I'm just like oh my god I love everything about you.
I was
Um
gonna say, is this thing you have for sad-eyed and or hook-nosed men specific to the men you've loved in your life, or does it apply to ladies as well?
you know what's really funny?
What?
If you took the people I've dated body type wise, I mean, and I'm saying this like kind of as a very vast generalization.
Right.
Um, they tend to fall on the like short and sort of full side,
Hmm. Yeah.
not on the tall and gangly side. Like I
Hmm.
typically end up being like the tall gangly skeleton person.
You
Um,
want to be the tall, gangly skeleton in the
I
closet.
think I think maybe that's what it is. It's this is a thing that I have with men sometimes that I have to always
Mhm.
question myself of where I'm like, am I attracted to you or do I wish I looked like you? And sometimes
Or do I wanna
it's
be you?
yeah, it's usually more of the second one, but sometimes it gets combined and I think that's what happened with Adrian Brody. I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't care. I love
It's
you.
like it's like they hate us because they ain't us, but it's more like, "I'd bang ya because I am ya."
That's a really convoluted way to get to that. Um,
Bad
but
slant
he
rhyme, my apologies, listeners.
truly. But okay, I love Adrian Brody. Like just as an actor, I think he's fantastic. I don't know the man personally. Um,
Mhm. Surprise.
a surprise. Um, I think he is a fantastic actor.
Yeah.
He obviously has a very specific look that it's hard like if you were like get somebody that's really good at looking sad,
Mhm.
it's Adrian
Oh, Adrian
Brody.
Brody fits the bill to a T.
But then in Midnight in Paris, he plays Salvador Dali, and he's like the most insane, wild, crazy, like alive person. Um,
Mhm.
and it's great. Like I love Adrian Brody. I think he is a fantastically talented actor. I think he is hot as fuck, and I have since I think Adrian Brody might have been the first like dude that I even was like, what is up? And
Who
like
is this
that's
tall string bean?
I know. I was like, yeah, 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 like Brad Pitt, whatever. He's fine. I don't care. But then I was like, Adrian Brody, yes, please. Um,
I'm sure I've made endless fun of you for that, but only
every
only because he is not typically good looking. But I have to agree, he is a very attractive man in the way that he is, which is unique to him.
it's an arresting type of attraction. I don't know how else to
Right.
say it. It's arrest it like
Yeah.
it stops you in your tracks. You're like, I have to watch this person. Um,
Yeah.
he is and I and like to put him, that actor, tall, gangly, weird, just sort of like sad, downcast,
Yeah.
forlorn.
A real Jack Skellington kind of situation going on.
I think he's sadder than Jack Skellington is. I think Jack Skellington is
Wow.
too alive.
Wow, hot take.
I think Jack Skellington is a little too alive and vivacious for
J
my purposes.
Jack Skellington, a literal skeleton, is happier than you perceive Adrian Brody to be at his hottest.
Yes. And I stand by it. And I stand by
Yeah.
that hot take.
His eyes will continue to sink in further back into the back of his skull, much like the eyes of our ancestors and our progeny.
I'm waiting for it. I'm gonna look like a skeleton soon. Can't wait.
Yeah.
But to
So
have
Adrian Brody's the best.
so he's the best. But in this film, to have him counter like playing opposite Mark fucking Ruffalo, who in my opinion is also like one of the great American actors. He is an
He's a
everyman
gentleman's
actor.
gentleman. Yeah.
He is a gentleman's gentleman. He is an actor's actor. He is so fucking good. I know that's not interesting to say.
No, but he is. He's one
But that's the
of the better
thing.
actors of his. He's one of the best actors of his generation, and he is
100%.
magnetically charming to look at and watch.
He
He brings
is.
a kind of calm confidence to everything he does, which apparently, you know, belies his actual spirit. Which it sounds like he is actually quite.
He seems quite anxious. Every interview I've ever seen with him in it,
Yeah,
I'm like, honey, are you okay? Oh my God. Like, do you need a blanket? Like, are you good?
yeah,
But
but yeah, these two are perfectly paired in this movie.
they are perfectly paired as the perfect like yin to their yang, the perfect foil for each other. Um,
Hmm.
and it because Mark Ruffalo's character in this film is the showman. He oozes charm. He just every room he walks into, he's the most loved person. Like he is just charm and charisma, and it takes up like all of the air in any room that he enters. And so to have the two of them as the main relationship in the film is just brilliant casting.
Yeah.
Um, and I also this was the thing Evan and I were talking about a little bit before we started recording. So Mark Ruffalo, right? This movie came out in 2008. Uh, Mark Ruffalo had been in a lot of kind of smaller budget indie stuff, mid budget, like 13 going on 30 and like that kind of stuff and like some smaller roles. And then I can't remember what year it was, but then kind of he was cast as the Hulk
Yeah, in the
in
Avengers, which I
Marvel.
think was
12,
2012, sounds about right. Yeah, let me
right?
guess.
So
Yeah,
he
there'd been
he
two
had
Hulks before him that hadn't made the cut.
and you know what? Our main man, Mark Ruffalo, he was like, I got this. I can carry a fucking franchise. I don't give a fuck. Like,
Yeah,
I don't give a
I'm
shit.
sticking with this.
I'm sticking with this. I got bills to pay. I got a wife. I got kids. Like, let's make the mortgage payments.
Yeah.
And still is my favorite Hulk. That's a side conversation. But, he kind of got off on this track of being in the like highest grossing films of all time, this major, 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 major budget pictures. And to me, watching this movie now, watching The
Mhm.
Brothers Bloom now, I was like, oh my God, you could draw a direct line between Mark Ruffalo's character in The Brothers Bloom and Mark Ruffalo's character in Poor Things, right?
Mhm. Yeah,
Which,
they have a lot of they have some overlap in their roguish charm.
yes, and I feel like there's a certain amount, right, of that kind of. I think a lot of people watched Poor Things and were like, "Oh my God, Mark Ruffalo, he's like showing a whole new side of himself. This is so crazy."
Mhm.
And it's like,
Yeah. No, it's
right,
been there
but
for sure. He
it's
knows how to
been
play this
there.
guy. He was also good as in oh shoot, what was the name of that of the lesbian parents movie?
Oh,
All Our
The Kids
Kids
Are All
or
Right. The
The
Kids Are
Kids
All
Are All
Right.
Right. Yeah,
He
yeah.
was
He's great in
really
that
fucking
too,
great
where
in
he's
that
like
movie too.
Yeah, he's not like necessarily a sleazeball, but he's definitely like he's like a Casanova kind of person. He definitely knows how to charm the
Yes.
ladies, and I feel like he's really good at those kinds of roles. And you're right, he's had kind of a history of playing these characters who kind of unintentionally like to try to get one over on people, because he's just
Yeah.
like
But it's
fun that
very
way.
but also, like, you can't hate him. Like, it
It's
doesn't
hard to
ma
hate him.
it's
Yeah.
hard to hate him. He's too charming, and I love him.
Yes.
So anyway, Adrian Brody, Mark Ruffalo, we just had to get that kind of out of our system
Yeah,
before we
honestly,
start
I'm like,
talking about
why aren't why weren't, get my grammar right, why weren't Mark Ruffalo and Adrian Brody like cast in more things together?
I
They
don't
formed this
know.
kind of like, they feel like a Paul Newman and Robert Redford to me, or like
Yeah,
a Russell Crowe and Ryan Gosling, The Nice Guys, another completely underappreciated masterpiece.
underappreciated masterpiece as well.
Film
Yeah,
people love it. Everybody else is like, I've never heard of it. It's like, idiot.
I love
Go
the
watch The
nice
Nice
guys
Guys and The Brothers Bloom and Submarine.
and Submarine. God.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, no, they're a perfect pairing, and I wish Adrian Brody and Mark Ruffalo are two actors who, no matter what the film is, I am likely going to watch it because of
Yeah.
them.
Which is in shorter supply these days. I think that they
Liz.
are of the ilk of some of the last, what you might call movie stars, which is,
Yeah.
and I know we've got the Chris Pines and
But
the
hang
Chris
on.
Pratt,
I would
but the
say
point being that like those people are, people go to Marvel movies to see Thor and Captain America. They don't go to
right.
necessarily to see Chris Evans and Hemsworth. Robert Downey, you could argue, but he's from a different era, right? Like,
He's from a different
I
era. Yeah.
yeah, these people who are great actors who are in good movies, like this is the kind of movie that I think people in 2008 would have gone to see it because they know Adrian Brody and they like him and they want to see him act in
Right.
something even if they don't know what the movie is, which is becoming less and less of a thing these days as intellectual property franchises start to are like take over more and more. Yeah, I think their hold is lessening, but yeah, they are from that era when it's like, I want to see that person act in something. That is what
Yeah.
interests people about the movie.
Yes, and I would also argue, like, I mean, I've seen 13 going on 30 more times than is probably reasonable for someone that doesn't miss being a 13-year-old girl because that was a horrible time.
Hmm.
Um, but I keep coming back to it because Mark Ruffalo is so goddamn charming.
Yeah, we're gonna use the
He's
word
such a
charming
delight.
to describe Mark
It's
Ruffalo like a million times in this movie, but
probably a
it's
million.
all of them are appropriate ways to describe him.
Yes. All right, shall we jepete?
Let's get
Evan,
into the
Evan,
plot
would you
synopsis.
Evan, would you care to jepete?
Yes, I can describe the plot through
Could
our
I
robot overlords at
could
ChatGPT.
could I offer you a jepete? A chat jepete?
A Japite on the rocks? I'll
Oh,
take a no.
do you want
Salt on the rim of your ChatGPT?
do you want to chill chat jepete?
Yes. Shaken or stirred ChatGPT. Um, we're gonna get more into a detailed sort of breakdown of pieces of this movie because it's got the plot is very intricate, even though the character dynamics are as clear as you could hope them to be in any movie. But here's the short version, a little teaser, if you will.
Ease it.
The Brothers Bloom follows two con artist brothers, Stephen, played by Mark Ruffalo, and Bloom, Adrian Brody, who craft intricate schemes to swindle the wealthy. For one last big score, they target Penelope, Rachel Weiss, an eccentric heiress with a flair for adventure. But as Bloom falls for their mark, the line between deception and reality begins to blur, leading to a globe-trotting journey filled with twists, humor, and heart. This stylish and poignant caper explores love, trust, and the search for authenticity in a world built on illusion. Yeah, there you go.
And
It's a
jepete.
NJPT.
NJPT.
It's a con man caper heist movie, but with a
It
flavor of romance thrown
but
in. In
it's
fact, I would say
yeah,
a large dollop of romance. It is at the heart of the film and the central
yeah.
question of plaguing the character of Bloom. Can he feel love again after a
Can he
lifetime of convincing himself, of convincing other people of the lies he and his brother have been selling them?
yeah, can he believe the lie? It's fucking fantastic.
Yeah. Also,
I
not mentioned there is their assistant Bang Bang, who is a Asian lady who uses explosives to blow things up and doesn't talk very much, which is just a great little side character trope for a con man caper movie.
she could blow up my pants anytime. I would let her take my
You could
social
blow
sec
up.
I would let her take my social security number. I would
Hmm.
give her all the money I had, like, sanity doesn't I don't care.
Yeah, she
Bang
can
bang
blow up your heart as well as your pants.
at 100%. I'm in love. I'm in love, it's fine. We're gonna move
Yeah.
on. We're gonna move on.
Yes.
We so okay, so that's kind of the very we're gonna get to talking more about the actual like what happens in all of the good juicy center. But
Yeah.
I wanted oh, you and I had both talked about this a little bit, but Evan, I would like to open the floor to you to
Hmm.
cinnamon nerd geek out about Ryan Johnson, the writer and director of this film, for
Absolutely.
a bit because
I,
I have a little bit to say about him,
mhm.
but you are this please as our resident cinephile of this
Sure.
duet,
Uh-huh.
please, the floor is yours.
I will see your invitation and raise you an invitation to myself to nerd out. So, thusly armed, here I go. I mean, Ryan Johnson, okay, Brick, this movie, Looper, The Last Jedi, Knives Out, Glass Onion. Need I say more?
You do not.
Um,
Wait, hang on. Can I really quickly
yeah,
so I have not seen Brick and I have not seen Looper.
cool.
I have seen The Last Jedi, Knives Out, Glass Onion, and this film.
Hmm.
These films, those films that I've just listed out,
Hmm.
I have seen Knives Out and Glass Onion and The Brothers Bloom more than 4 or 5 times each because
Nice.
I love watching them. Even though I know the ending, I
Yeah,
love watching them, and that is amazing direction, that's amazing writing. Go
yeah.
Ryan Johnson. I just had to say that. I watch his films a lot, and I never get tired of watching them. I never get tired of watching them, and that's very rare.
Totally. No, it's true. Yeah. Yeah, for me, Brick and Looper are not as uh, on this higher echelon, but I think they're both really well constructed movies. Brick is his sort of directorial debut, and Looper was his sci-fi time loop movie, which stars Joseph Gordon-Levitt as a young Bruce
Yep,
Willis, which is sort of
yep,
great and lovely.
yep,
But this is
yep.
not an episode about Looper. We'll talk about that some other time. Um, so yeah, so Ryan Johnson, I think, is a writer first and a director as well. Um, he is. I mean, yeah, for me, this movie we're talking about is the movie that stepped him onto the scene. I think that even if Knives Out clearly connected very strongly with an audience. Some of his other movies, I think, didn't quite connect with an audience, general audience right away. But people within the industry watching his movies were like, this guy can write a movie and like do it really well and is a really great structuralist. And I think he's really good with characters too, which comes through in, I think, most of his movies. Um, and I don't know, like, I mean, I'll just gab about my own feelings about Ryan Johnson for a second. Like, to me, he is a filmmaker who has this rare ability to kind of like, he has this unmistakable voice in all of the movies that he writes and directs. Like, you can feel the humor and the pathos, and he uses those to great effect because then when the drama hits you, it feels even more intense because of all the other fun and he's kind of, you know, irreverently and absurdly funny sometimes. Um, but he's also like a craftsman who's able to pull off working across multiple sort of genres, right? So like, because his directorial debut, Brick, is really kind of like a film noir, but set in like a high school type of setting. There's this movie, obviously, which is like a con man heist quasi noir movie too. There's Looper, which is very straight science fiction. Last Jedi, space fantasy. Knives Out, straight detective film a la Agatha Christie. And and even within Knives Out and Glass Onion, you could argue that though they're the detective movies, in fact, I listened on the Script Notes podcast. He goes on and says, like, the fun of continuing to make Benoit Blanc movies is that each of them, they'll always be a mystery, but like, I feel like I can move within, like, switch the overall genre up between them, because Knives Out is very kind of like a serious sort of
It's a
it's as
closed
close to
door
like a
true
murder
mystery.
mystery. Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas Glass Onion, while it's still a mystery, is more of a zany comedy almost. And he's
Yes.
like, I could see making one of these that's like a horror,
Yes.
detective story, a la, and like, because that's there. Anyway, he's just really good at crafting things across genre. He clearly has a really uh, intimate knowledge of movies. Most directors do, but you can tell that he has this love of movies, especially old movies from that classical era of like the 40s, 50s, even the 30s. And honestly, like, I kind of prefer what he does in many ways to, say, the sort of hyper stylized directors that we think of this era, like like Wes Anderson or even Tarantino, who, are great in their own ways. But I think that everybody has gotten the idea that they do lean on their style or even their words to some degree. There's sort of markers that you can call style that each of these people kind of like hone in on.
Mm.
But Ryan Johnson really always feels very functional in his storytelling. He finds a way to make everything fun, but it's also like every story he tells is exactly what it needs to be. And because he knows how to switch his game up enough to accommodate the type of story he's trying to tell. It's not like he's trying to make something cool in his own style. That's like kind of what Tarantino does, right? He like
Mm,
picks a
mhm.
movie like a exploitation movie or a World War II movie, and kind of like puts his spin on it.
Right.
Whereas I feel like Ryan Johnson is sort of like able to find to have a idea of something that interests him and then mold it very carefully into what it needs to be to work for itself. And like
Yeah.
his style is in the ability to sort of craft around where the story itself wants to go. In a lot of ways, I think, I don't know. Like, I really like his sort of, he's got a really wicked sense of humor, but also this sincere streak that I really appreciate. It's like, to me, it's like if Frank Capra and John Huston like were one person making movies. It's like there's
If
this.
they melded and were one.
Yeah, yeah, because it's like, John Huston famously directed many film noir movies, kind of gritty, like guys with the their Stetson hats and stuff like that, or sorry, their fedoras, and and Frank Capra is obviously known for this kind of like sentimentality that wasn't even
Mhm.
popular in his time, but I feel like there is kind of some sort of chemistry there where he takes the best of the hard boiled stuff that he likes and he takes the best of the sincere stuff that he likes, and he's able to create a world that feels, um it's a lie that tells the truth, as they'd say later on in this movie.
Yes. It's uh I I don't have enough film history knowledge to speak to anything you just said. But I will say, of all of Ryan Johnson's films that I've seen, and I've seen a few of them. Um, I think you're totally right. It is an ineffable quality that he brings that he is there to serve the story. The story is not there to serve him.
Yeah. Hmm.
And I think this film reminded me, so I really love Wes Anderson's earlier films. I know that's such a
Hmm.
like bougie hipster thing to say.
I
Um,
like some of his later films too. I'm kind of in the minority. I actually really enjoyed The French Dispatch, but
I enjoyed
I understand that some people are kind of like, I'm over it, you know.
I enjoyed the
Hmm.
French Dispatch.
Yeah,
Um, but I will say that the films that stick out to me, like with Wes Anderson, are Life Aquatic, Royal Tenenbaums, Darjeeling Limited. They're films that have a very specific visual language, but they're also getting at a really intense like heart of those characters. And
totally.
I think that is the thing that it seems at least that Ryan Johnson hasn't become married to a visual trope or a
Yes.
particular language. He
Yeah.
is
He's not infatuated with the French New Wave, but he has
yes,
studied it intensely, and he has also studied many other people, and so it's like, let's
exactly.
bring the visual language to bear on the story as it's needed, you know,
As
which
it
I
is
think.
needed, and
Yeah.
you can clearly the thing that I took away from watching this film again was, like, Brian Johnson fucking loves film. He
He does.
loves the medium of film
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
is so has obviously been such a student of it in his life
Yeah.
that he is a great writer, he is a great screenwriter, he is a great director.
Mhm.
He gets exactly at those little moments and those small things that you can't get easily with other media. You can't get it the same way. It would seem cumbersome if you were reading a book and there were kind of these like happenstance descriptions or whatever. Like it just
Yeah.
it's a perfect example. He is a great example of somebody who uses the medium of film to its
Mhm.
highest potential. And I think that's partially why his films are really enjoyable and they have a lot of rewatchability because it's like,
Mhm.
I mean, it's like it's like going and seeing a Van Gogh in person. You kind of you like
Yes.
it's the thing of like you get what all the fuss is about, right? You kind of see it and you
Yeah,
realize
he's the
like,
real deal.
"Oh my god, like this is somebody that is a student and a master of
Mhm.
this craft, of this art form." And it
And
man, I can't yeah.
to your point, fun fact about Ryan Johnson about how much he loves movies. His wife is Karina Longworth, who is a film writer, historian, and podcaster behind the very, very popular Hollywood history podcast, You Must Remember This, which is a quote from, oh shoot, Casablanca, and which is a exceptionally great deep dive into cinematic history. If that is anything that interests listeners of this pod, would highly recommend Karina Longworth's "You Must Remember This" podcast. So clearly, they are a film history household, and
Yes.
no doubt love everything that cinema has to offer. This has been a great introduction, so we will be right back and we'll be discussing the characters and the story when we return. Welcome back. Let's get into talking about the characters and start doing a little play-by-play of the story of the movie. I think it'll be fun to sort of discuss what makes this movie special. And I think probably the best thing that makes this movie special is that these characters are just so well realized and developed, and it feels like, especially the relationship between the brothers feels very realized and real. So maybe we can just go quickly through a quick introduction of each of these characters and some of their main characteristics.
Please do.
Okay, I will start. So uh, when the movie opens, and we'll get to this, but we meet Steven and Bloom. Steven is Mark Ruffalo, the older brother, true con man with a shit-eating grin,
Green.
with a shit-eating grin, who only loves his brother and nobody else, probably, as far as we can
I
tell.
think that's fair. Yeah, I think that's accurate.
Yeah. And then there's Bloom. Interesting aside, I guess they are the brothers Bloom, but Bloom is the one. So I always assumed it was their last name too. So is this a Mario
I
brothers, like a Mario situation? Is he Bloom? It doesn't really
I
matter.
I don't think it matters, but I get the sense that Bloom is their last name, and Steven goes
Yeah.
by Steven, and Bloom goes by his last name. That was
Yeah,
my assumption. I don't know.
maybe there's a deleted scene from the first draft of the script that describes this. Adrian Brody, who is the beset upon younger brother, he has a wistful nature and the world's saddest eyes. And can I just say, I 100% identify very heavily with Bloom's quarter to mid life crisis, his 3/8 life crisis.
Okay,
Um,
can we wait? Okay, before we keep going on to the characters, because after all, this season's theme is siblings.
Indeed,
Um,
yeah.
it's so funny that you said that because this whole movie I was watching and I was like, I identify so much with Steven. Like so much.
No, 100%. I feel very bloomy. I feel
Okay,
like I am occasionally constipated in my soul, but I'm working it out. I'm getting the Pepto-Bismol of emotional health.
you're working out. That's so funny to me because in my head I was like, I wonder if Evan is gonna have the same takeaway because as I was watching it, you know how you watch movies and you kind of relate them to the people in your life or whatever.
Naturally, yes.
And I was definitely watching this movie and I was like, oh my god, Evan is Bloom and I think I'm Steven. Oh my god.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, like the specific thing about Bloom's characterization that I don't have as much of is like and hopefully you don't feel this way either, but I don't feel like I'm like you haven't convinced me to go into a life of crime, I don't feel like beset upon by anything that you've done to me in this life. But I
Not
do
yet.
have right.
We
But I
have
do
time.
heavily
We have
this is
time to form a smugglers gang, is what I'm saying.
Ooh, good call. Yes, life is long, and we're still young.
In our
But
40s,
yeah,
we can start a smugglers gang.
yeah, I like that idea actually a lot.
Me
Um,
too.
but yeah, his 35, he's 35 and he doesn't want to do the things he's spent his whole life perfecting. He feels like nothing uh, has come of his. He doesn't know who he is because he just doesn't have. The underpinnings, like he's done something that doesn't jive with his character or something anyway. And I just love it's just funny to me when people are like so sad, which is hilarious to me.
I know.
So yeah, anyway, I did identify with the emotional constipation of Bloom's character and his pining and everything. So yeah,
Oh, that's so
Bloom,
fun. That's
Stephen and
so fun.
Bloom.
This is again, I think this is why sometimes I think most people actually, especially as we've gotten older and it's harder to kind of intrinsically tell our age difference, right? It's easy when there's like a 4-year-old and a 7-year-old.
Hmm.
Um, I feel like over and over, you and I, when we're out and about and we're talking to people, inevitably people will be like, think that I'm the older sibling.
Which I take issue with.
No, I take issue with it too because I am like, do not put that responsibility bullshit on me. I'm the youngest child, bitch. Like, don't even. Don't even.
Well, yes, we were both handfuls in different ways, but the way I learned to deal with it was just to shut up and get out of the way. So,
I know. And my solution was break a plate and be a bigger problem.
Right. Real big sibling energy, I guess,
I don't
in
know.
in the
I don't think
global
it is.
consciousness.
I don't know if it is. So
But yeah, I
do we?
wanted to well, this is good because I want to, like,
Yeah,
keep talking about this for a second. I want before we
yeah,
continue with the rest of the characters, I just wanted to talk briefly. We've talked about Adrian Brody and Mark Ruffalo and what great actors they are and what good chemistry they have together. But yeah, I'd love to take a brief aside to sort of get our initial feelings about how we felt like their sibling relationship was portrayed on screen and in the screenplay, because I think that they did a really good job creating this brother dynamic that you feel has all this weight behind it,
yeah. And
all of this loyalty and resentment, but very deep love as well.
it's and I think it also is nice how the film starts out with them as children. So you get this sense of like how this started and then because that's how sibling relationships are, right? You build,
Starts in childhood usually.
you would think, but you build this very particular bridge of a relationship with this one person that's having like very similar life experiences to you.
Hmm.
And then that carries into adulthood in one way or another, right? Um,
Hmm.
hopefully for the better, and you start making a podcast with them because they're like your best friend. Um, we love each other. Um,
This is where I put the little sparkly anime stars in my eyes.
please. Um, so it, that conflict is at the center of the film, right? Because
Hmm.
no matter what you do, like your sibling is with you your entire life. I feel like we've talked about this a lot, just in
Hmm.
terms of love them, hate them, whatever.
They're
They're
there.
always
You're gonna have to deal with them.
they're there, like they're the person that's there, and they
Hmm.
are the person that even I think in a deeper way than someone's parents often they understand you at like a cellular level. Um,
Yeah, well, you've gone through many of the same reformative experiences together, and I think that yeah, it's very smart of this movie to start the story where they are going through maybe the most intense portion of their life together, getting jumped around between different foster homes. Because
mhm,
it is those kinds of. It's interesting to think about it in comparison to Pleasantville, where you assume that
mhm.
these kids haven't had a lot of traumatic experiences besides
Right.
their parents breaking up, which seems to have been a recent development. So it's like they, look, not that it's like you need traumatic things to bond you to people,
But
but
it
when you,
helps. It
but it
sure
helps.
helps.
But when you have things that happen in your childhood that are big experiences, it brings you closer together. You are each other's
Yeah.
life rafts, and the brothers Bloom are certainly that to each other. That you can tell that um,
Yeah.
all that Steven really wants to do, he could give a fuck about anyone else, and he just wants to help protect his little brother Bloom. And Bloom both relies on the strength of Steven, but also has a magnetic detraction from it because of what he thinks it represents, right? The sort of
Yeah.
life of crime, but they know that no matter what is going on, that they have each other's backs, and they, despite character differences, they would never uh, double cross each other.
Yeah, and I think that is a particular I think that is a part of a sibling dynamic that this film captures very well, right?
Hmm.
Your sibling is someone that you can hate the most in the world and be so furious at them and be like,
Hmm.
"I never wanna see you again. Get the fuck out of my life. I
Hmm.
hate
I'm
you,
going to Montenegro.
and I love you, and I hope you're okay."
Right.
Like, it. and both, and it's the duality of like both of those things are deeply true.
Mhm.
Um, and but ultimately it's like Bloom and Steven through this whole film are kind of this like repelling attracting force. And it because like I you get the sense that Bloom hates Steven. Like he's like you
I
control
don't think he
every
hates him.
but
I think he's disappointed in him in some
but that's
way.
but I mean like there's a hate maybe is not the right word, but Bloom looks at Steven and is
Mhm.
like, I don't I don't get it. I don't want to do your weird shit anymore. I want to live
Mhm.
my own life. Like he has this great line. He says, "I want an unwritten life," which just like ugh, to the to the core. Um,
Mhm.
but it's but you get over and over again that no matter the conflict they have, no matter the disagreements they have, no matter the like day-to-day things that are making them be at each other's throat, when push comes to shove, like they are a solid unit. And I think that is the thing that like with a strong sibling bond, there's never a question.
They
That's
found a Yeah, they found a
that's
way
the
to
piece of
survive
it.
together, right? They
Yeah.
found this conning life that Steven really invented for them, as a way to survive in a world that was kind to them.
Mhm.
And for Steven, since it was his idea, since he has a kind of devil may care attitude anyway, is able to kind of imbibe that characteristic and lives it, right?
Yeah.
Whereas um, Bloom has this sense that there's something wrong because of the lifestyle they've chosen to lead,
Mhm.
or it's because it's become his identity and he didn't necessarily choose it. And I think he also
Yeah.
has a problem with, I mean, well, we'll get to this in the opening, but there's also this sort of sense of that he also, maybe because he got taken, even though he was in on the initial con, he still also got taken in by the
Yeah.
beautiful story that was getting told. Um, and when he remembered that it was just a story that they created to sort of trick the kids into going to a cave, then he was sort of like, oh, even though he knew it was going to happen, he feels a little taken in by Steven too. Like, I
And
wonder if
I
I can trust this guy. I wonder if I can trust myself.
and I think that is one of the central conflicts of the film is that Steven trusts Bloom, period, full stop, doesn't matter. Like
Hmm.
that is an undeniable, unbroken bond. But Bloom doesn't always trust Steven back.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
there's always that like 5% in Bloom, and you can see it throughout the film. Like there's always
Hmm.
that 5% that's like, is this a fucking con? Like, is this the
Right.
thing? And I think that is a beautiful kind of pebble in the shoe of a character of
Hmm.
trusting the other person that that they've lived their whole life with so intrinsically, but then also being like having that little kid.
Okay. Continue.
Having that continual small shred of doubt, right? That little splinter that's just
Hmm.
there.
Yeah.
And
I know. It's a great dynamic. I mean,
it's
and
fantastic.
so that's where we start with this sort of baseline of who these characters are to each other as we enter
Yes.
into the movie.
Yes.
Um, but yeah, let's quickly talk about some of the other characters. We got Bang Bang, who is the sort of third wheel to the brothers con man situation, portrayed by Rinko Kinkuchi. She's described by Steven within the movie as the fifth Beatle. She's kind of like the demolitions expert.
The
Um,
the woman I would ruin my life for. I'm not even kidding you. I'm like, throw it all to the wind. Does Bang Bang
yeah,
wanna like, does she wanna go to, like, Marrakesh this weekend? Great, let's go. Like, I don't know
yeah.
what we're doing there. Like,
You're
I'll
gonna
lose
blow
my
some stuff up.
I'll lose my job over it. I don't care, Bang Bang. You're
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah. I know one of the quote that a character says about her is that her philosophy is when you're done with something, blow it up. All right, Bang Bang, I love you now.
God, she's the best.
Demolitions expert extraordinaire. And then later in the movie, we meet Penelope, portrayed by Rachel Weiss, the supposedly demure and clueless heiress who's got many, many talents that she's accumulated.
Oh, she
Um,
collects hobbies, much
she
like
collects
myself,
hobbies, and she is the she is the dictionary definition, perhaps, of a manic pixie dream girl.
which I'm gonna
But
push back on, but keep going.
no, just that, I mean, I don't know. She loves to do what she loves to do. She's a little weird, but down with the main character. And I mean, cute as a button, you know? Was there anybody that didn't have a crush on Rachel Weisz from 1999 to 2010? I can't, I was one of
Look,
them.
started strong with the mummy and then just kept on going.
Kept on going. Yeah.
Um, so okay, so kind of along the lines of talking about Garden State and this sort of era of cinema, we get this idea, and I'm not going to remember the person that first coined the term of manic pixie dream girl. Um, Basically being like a fun, quirky, interesting, weird girl who is kind of only there to like break out the sad boy from his sad ways and being sad. And
Yeah.
and I think the difference, and I think why another reason that this film is really great is that I think Penelope as a character embodies a lot of those traits, right? She's
Hmm.
very strange. She is like peak odd. And it's like
Yeah.
because she's an eccentric heiress that essentially, she's had this kind of like also her own version of like kind of a semi-tragic backstory of being sort of kept away and alone and all of these things and being like watching her mother die and watching her,
Hmm.
and all of this stuff. But she's lived a very isolated, lonely life. And
Yeah.
so, and I think what sets her apart from the kind of manic pixie dream girl trope is that, she's odd, she's intelligent, and also very gullible. Um, she's funny, she's gorgeous, all of these things. But
Hmm.
she has her own motivations, she has her own desires. She's not just there as like window dressing for the like male characters to live out their lives. Like she has an engine that drives her. She has
Hmm.
her own interests and she's quirky because she's quirky, not be-
She has character reasons to be quirky and
yeah, she has character.
lonely and finds it hard to talk to people. This is not just because there's like legitimate
Yeah,
reasons in her character backstory that back up her being this way.
right, exactly. There's a reason behind it, and she has her own motivations. She has her own. She makes her own decisions. She is somebody that is like this alive, vivacious person, but
Hmm.
that's not an affectation. That is literally just who she is, and that's how she moves through the world. Like I love that she is kind of not bound by a lot of social norms. The first time that she and Bloom have a conversation, she's kind of like falling asleep because he's kind of giving the staid and normal like grift backstory, and she's like, oh
Hmm.
god, this is so fucking boring. And she can't stop it, and so she's the best version of that manic pixie dream girl, of where it's like she's intensely strange, she's
Hmm.
intensely intelligent, she's intensely funny,
Yeah.
and none of that is a means, none of that is the end of her character. She's
Yes.
she's all of that and a billion times more.
Yes.
And she's just fucking,
Agree.
she's just so goddamn cute and hot, and my god, I love her.
Yeah, Rachel Weisz is one of those people that is
Smoke show.
it. Yeah, it's difficult to it's difficult for a person to pull this off with their just what God gave them with what they're working with. But she, I would describe as hot in a cute way.
Yeah, and that's a very specific and weird designation, but also accurate. And I
Yeah.
don't have the words to describe it, but I'm like accurate and correct.
So, I was going to talk about the two other main characters, but I don't think we really need to yet. I say we get into the play-by-play of the movie scenes because our next characters really play a more important
Yeah.
part later
And
in the
we
movie.
I think we can just say there's Maximilian the curator and there's Harold Fagin the diamond dog. We can just say like those are kind of the other two big characters. They will come into play later, but they're not the main meat of the situation. It's basically
To-
Stephen, Bloom, Penelope, and Bang Bang. Those are our star players.
yes, precisely as you put it is true.
I know, I'm very smart. It's almost like I'm like the older sibling and I like know all of the things and all of the stuff.
Uh, I'll agree.
No, inaccurate. All right. So the way that Evan and I kind of wanted to structure this sort of play by play of things was this film this film starts out with a very charming kind of map of a grift, of a con, right? You start here and then this happens and then this happens. And because the film is structured that way, that the film is kind of like this kind of like their last big con,
Hmm.
it's separated by distinct geographic locations. And so we were like, well, if we kind of structure how we talk about this by the location, that again sort of encapsulates that moment, those characters, what they're doing at that time. So that's sort of how we're going to do the main stage of this. So the first several scenes and how we open the film is in childhood, is as Bloom and Stephen as kids. Stephen is 13, Bloom is 10. Um, like Evan said, they're kicked around from foster home to foster home. And essentially, Stephen devises his first con as a way to convince Bloom to talk to the girl that he likes. And it sort of instills this life of grifting that they take on.
This intro is perfect, to for lack of a better word. It's a little slice of this well delivered, very quick, punchy exposition, and it's two little boys wearing baggy suits and big hats, and which is just very endearing.
It's so
It sets up
cute.
Yeah, it sets up everything you need to know about these two and what their struggles were as young men and sort of how their each of them dealt with it, how what these situations brought out in their characters, right? Um, and it just reminds me that like if you're gonna do, a heavy sort of backstory exposition dump at the front of your movie or anywhere in your movie, it's like make it matter to the characterization of your leads and also just make it fun. And this is one of those things where there's just a lot of filmmaking fun going on. It goes fast and loose in describing the kind of harrowed past that these two brothers grew up with and how they came up with the grifting angle for basically Steven comes up with it as a way to convince Bloom to talk to a girl he likes, which is just very cute. And they come up with an elaborate scheme because Bloom can't just go out and say it, but somehow through being a different character that Steven has created for him, Bloom is able to become this thing he wanted to be, this person who could actually talk to the girl he likes.
Wait, can I just read that I stopped the movie and like wrote this word for word because it was so beautiful and striking. This is in the first bit right after Stephen has written this initial grift for his younger brother.
Mm-hmm.
Quote, and then, as if a curtain had been pulled back from the sky, some barrier within the younger Bloom was broken. So Bloom performed his role in Stephen's story to a T. And being who he wasn't, he could be exactly as he wished to be. Fuck. Good writing.
Yeah,
Good
very good.
writing.
Very good
Fucking
turn of
good
phrase
writing.
and
Of
great
like,
characterization of somebody.
yeah, and like, and also the thing too that I want to touch on, especially in this early phase of them in childhood, a lot of the kind of exposition is done through a voiceover. And this is a fantastic example of how you should use voiceover in film, where it is adding to the story and adding context to what's happening, but it's not just exactly mirroring the thing happening on screen.
Mm-hmm.
So you're hearing a voiceover, but you're seeing visuals that are different than what the voiceover is saying, and it's very masterfully handled. Um, and it's a great way to open the film in the first like 10 or 15 minutes with, like Evan said, just like it's punchy, it's quick, it sets the aesthetic language of the film. It's like you're there, you're in it, and it's done. Um,
Yeah.
it's showing you what you are in for. Like
Yeah.
it's
It's a great
setting.
example of setting the scene. It's like this is going to be a movie about showmanship and about cons and getting people to go along for the ride. So the movie itself, in the way that you get taken in by a good storyteller on the side of the street who just starts like gabbing at you and talking fast, like that's what the beginning of the movie feels like. It's like, hey, you, let me tell you a story, and then you're like, oh,
Yeah.
what? And then you're just in it immediately. So yeah, it gives you a little teaser of what's to come, and it plays the same kind of trick on you that the brothers play on their marks.
And it sets up the fact that Steven is the author. Like it sets up
Hmm.
that he's the one running the con, but the reason, and he's using Bloom as a pawn in his schemes,
Hmm.
but ultimately he's doing it because he loves Bloom, and like he wants
Right.
Bloom to be happy, and that is cemented within, like I said, the first like 15 minutes of the movie, and it's brilliant. It's just like boom, immediate. It's there.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. Um, Yeah. So that's the opening, and we learn about their childhoods, and we sort of see the beginnings of Steven's characteristics, where he kind of dislikes everybody, but will do just about anything, even play tricks on massive amounts of people for the sake of Bloom. He's also going to do it as a way to survive in the world. So part of the whole trick is that he tricks this whole group of kids to go into a cave, and they hear this story about the will-o-wisp, and they run in the mud and they get all dirty. They get in trouble, but of course he's also made a deal with the local laundromat, the dry cleaner, so that when all the
yep,
kids bring their dirty clothes in, he gets a
they get a
cut
cut.
of that from the laundry guy. So Steven has created this thing that was born of a desire to help his brother, and it also helps them survive. And now he and Bloom are off to the races. And the other part of it, which I talked about earlier, is that Bloom is, being the younger brother, is also, yeah, he can be who he wants to be through these stories of Steven, but there's a very delicately played moment where like he runs ahead of the kids as they run into the cave, and he kind of forgets for a second that it's a grift, and then he sees
Yeah.
Steven and is reminded that like, oh, this is all fake. And it starts off his dramatic question of like, what of myself is real, or what part of this is actually me? Is there any part of me that is, I think in essence, the question he begins to ask as he gets older is like, is there any part of me that's worth loving? And yeah, and that is the question that plagues him and is answered throughout the movie. So great
Yeah.
job at setting up the entire sibling dynamic and the dramatic questions for each of our central characters right there at the beginning.
Yeah. And then, so after that, we kind of cut to Berlin.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, the brothers have just completed, their latest con. Um, it's, Bloom is in front of a bookcase that's on fire, and there's someone holding a gun, and Steven is like playing the odd man. It's his whole setup, right? It's a whole setup. It's obvious that this is the end of the con, and it has to be.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, and Steven has perfectly written it, and Bloom has perfectly acted it, and
yeah,
they get the kind of desired result that Steven has decided on.
yeah,
And it causes tension. It basically, Bloom gets so mad and is like, I'm out. I'm done. I'm out. I'm fucking
yeah. You
off.
can
Get
you
away
can
from
tell
me.
he's at the end of his rope as far as these cons and these grifts. He's all the years have gone by, and he's finally, and he still is on this thing of like, I don't really know what the heck, you know, I'm doing here. I don't like being a bad person, I think, essentially. So yeah.
Yeah. And
Uh
I'm sick. I'm
he
sick of someone else dictating who I am in these
Yeah.
cons. I'm sick of my brother dictating who I am and the types of relationships I have, because ultimately it's always a con. It doesn't
But
matter.
yeah. And importantly, they make a point to say that like, are we gonna do this song and dance again? So they've had this conversation
Yeah.
many times, like, I'm leaving, and then Steven's like, you tell me you're leaving, I'll tell you this job, you'll get mad, we'll do the job, yeah. Okay, so I also want to point out very nice little Joseph Gordon-Levitt cameo in the bar in Berlin after they're celebrating. Joseph Gordon-Levitt starred in Rian Johnson's first movie, Brick. So even though he doesn't become a main
Oh,
character in this movie, I thought that was a fun
it
little
is
thing
cute.
I caught at the beginning, where I was like, okay, he threw his sort of like first lead actor friend up in the front of the movie. So
Yeah,
cool
and
little thing there.
this is also the first, when they're in Berlin, this is the first moment that you see Steven as an adult in the kind of full, like, P.T. Barnum-esque, he's a showman. He's doing card tricks. He knows everybody at the bar. He's, he's the life of the party. He's taking all the oxygen out of the room,
Yeah,
celebrating this, like, we pulled off the job,
yeah,
um, while Bloom is being sad and playing solitaire by himself. Uh,
yeah.
Womp womp.
Yes, womp womp indeed. So cut to Bloom, the fucking person the whole goddamn movie's named after. Cut to Bloom as he goes to Montenegro to fuck off and never be seen from again. Steven catches up with him and gives him the latest mark and target that he's found. One last job, the
One
classic one
last
last
job.
job
One last
situation.
job.
Yeah. So he takes it. He takes him up on it. Um, Now cut to New Jersey. and we see the mark, a giant castle, essentially,
Essentially, yeah.
uh, out in the wilds of New Jersey or whatever. And we're introduced to Penelope, the sort of, as we've alluded to, the manic pixie dream girl heiress that lives alone in a big mansion and drives her Lamborghini into everything.
I
Somehow
just
she just doesn't know how to drive a damn car, even though she can do literally everything else, apparently.
she can she can play like multiple instruments. She's like a crazy artist of many different talents. Like all she can do all of the things, and driving is categorically not one of them, which is very funny to me. We're at the New Jersey mansion, and it's this great setup of setting up the con, right? Setting up the Bloom is going to go charm the heiress, and we're going to get a bunch of money from her. And Steven and Bang Bang are there, and they have this whole hilarious thing of like, you're going to collide into her car while going downhill on a bicycle, and she's going to hit you with her car. And it's this hilarious, like, send up, and and Bang Bang and Steven are. This movie is a this movie is sold on its tiny moments. This movie is sold on its the small things that people do to have fun, essentially, right? Like Steven and Bang Bang are sitting on the hill, they're drinking beers, they have snacks. They're like, we're gonna give you a numeric value on how well you did on the careening down a hill and crashing into a car, right? Like they have number scorecards. It's very funny.
That's one of the funny. Yeah, that one I laughed out loud.
Yeah, because it's great. Because it's one of those like
The movie's full of great little visual comedy moments like that I love when it indulges in.
it's so I this is a little moment, and I'll just sort of maybe talk on this right now, but um in general, I am a fan of concise writing, right? Don't use 14 words when 8 will do. Be concise, be precise with your writing. Um, and again, I think this is another reason why Ryan Johnson loves the medium of film, because you can be very precise with your writing and you can add flavor, depth, and character to every scene, every moment with visual jokes, with like
Mhm.
small little visual things that don't progress the plot forward, but they progress the characters forward. It shows
Yeah.
like the thing of like Bang Bang and Steven having number cards. It's the thing of like, this is still a game. This is still fun. We are still actively having fun doing this thing all
Mhm.
together as a group. And that leads to a further visual joke of Bloom getting hit by a car, and then the car, like, instead of what the anticipated result is, which is the person will get out and say, "Oh my God, I hate you with my car. I'm so sorry. Let me take you to the hospital." Instead, Penelope doesn't get out of the car, and the car like goes forward and then goes back and goes forward and then goes back and then like hits a hill, and it turns out that she had a epileptic seizure, which like it's not funny, but it's very funny.
It's
Um,
pretty funny.
it's pretty funny, right? Because it also early on, as we're introduced to Penelope the character, sets up that like she is always going to throw a wrench in the grift. She's always going to do something unexpected, and she's always going to do something that sort of counteracts the plan, and then they have to adjust for it. And it makes it more interesting, and it makes it not a like. And then they meet and they fall in love, and it's like easy boop boop boop. She is a whole ass character with a whole ass character arc, and that becomes integral to the continuing plot of the movie.
In that meeting sequence, I mean, I just wanted to call out the really fun, very cinematic kind of montage that they do of introducing all of the things that she knows how to
Oh,
do,
I
right? Where she's
love.
like, "Oh, I know how. I'm a photographer, and I juggle, chainsaws, and
And I can
I
ride a unicycle, and I can play like 14 different instruments, and
yeah, yeah."
I what do I
The way it's cut
do?
together is very frenetic and great. It's just yeah, they just do. He just does a great job putting that sequence together, and
It's
it made me
just
laugh.
it's what would happen if you gave any single person with ADHD unlimited financial resources and they no
Hmm.
longer had to work, they would just collect hobbies because I was like, "Babe, this is my dream. This is my
Yes,
dream."
this was 2008, kids, before we were rapidly diagnosing people as neurodivergent.
I
Before it
know,
was probably a more commonly used uh, word in the parlance of our times.
but I mean, it was just literally the thing of like, "So what do you do?" "Oh, I collect hobbies." I don't do
Hmm.
anything with them, I just like doing it. I see a thing I'm interested in, I get a book on it, and I read it, and I get good at doing that thing.
Yeah,
And it's fucking fantastic. It's like,
it's
yes.
great. Yeah,
Uh,
and they and Bloom and Penelope are developing a little. It's clear
little
from the get go that Bloom has the feels for this total weirdo. um, and so they leave it, and they're so part of the grift is to get her on a boat to Prague, and be on their
well,
way
to
into the
Greece,
wild blue yonder, huh?
to Greece, because
Oh, right,
Stephen
sorry. The boat goes to
Stephen
Greece first.
Stephen has concocted this whole scheme of like we're antiquities dealers and we're legitimate and all of this stuff and da, 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 like kind of setting up this backstory. But yeah, the grift is get Penelope on the boat to Greece with us,
Hmm.
and we're gonna go from New Jersey ostensibly
Yeah.
to Greece on a boat.
And of
'Cause
course, Bloom feels like he needs an extra day. He's like, can't sink his teeth in quick enough. Probably he's also already thinking how to get this sweet woman out of being a mark, I think, is also probably
yeah,
working in his head.
he's
He's like, I like her. And of course, he continues to deny himself the thing that will make him happy because he thinks that this part of himself that is a con man is like not worth loving or whatever, and he doesn't want to drag anybody else into it. I mean, he says that explicitly later, but he's already thinking of it now. So
yeah,
but
and
lo and behold, Penelope is snagged anyway, because here she comes in her Lamborghini, or maybe it's a Ferrari, I don't know
no,
cars.
I think it's a Lamborghini.
Yeah, and drives it and smashes it into the docks somewhere and is like, I'm coming with you, hooray, I'm so weird and cool.
Yeah, but also, like, I have so much money, nothing matters. I can
Hmm.
do literally whatever I want to. It's
Yes.
like my life is confined to the loneliness of this house in the hinterlands of Jersey.
Yes.
Going to Greece
So
sounds like fun.
exactly. So they're on the boat to Greece now, and the stage is set for uh, romance and trickery and
Intrigue.
yes, theater of the spirit. Essentially, there's a couple more fun scenes that are very theatrical that I think are executed well. More trickery that more lies that tell the truth, if you will. And the grift begins in earnest when a Belgian man comes out of the shadows to
Mhm.
Penelope to offer her to sow doubt in her head as to what the intentions of the brothers Bloom are and what their past is. Of course, we, the audience, don't know this yet, but he is actually, this is part of the grift where he is
Mhm.
getting uh, hired by Steven to start her getting
Various
interested in being part of their grifting. So,
Yes, it's like machinations within machinations of Steven's mind
yes.
working, right? Like he yes, the curator, played by Robbie Coltrane, by the way, amazing. Um starts this kind of seed of doubt with all of this like, ooh, cloak and dagger, and like the lights go out on the boat and the thing, and it's a again, it's very specific, and it could come off as very like false and atonal, but the way it is handled within the visual language of the film, when we get these kind of like super theatrical elements of like all the lights on the deck go down and then like a man in a cloak comes out, it doesn't feel weird to have that. It's like, ooh, intriguing, tell me more.
Yeah.
Yes, and
Uh,
it's just again like it's heightening, you're kind of like upping the stakes, right? At every turn in this grift of like, is she gonna show up at the boat? And then there's the Belgian on the boat, and then there da, 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 and it just like keeps ramping up to a certain point.
yeah. Um, and yeah, okay, so the grift is set, and Penelope is getting intrigued by wanting to be part of something because she, as we can tell, is into adventure. So the stage is set for them to use her as a mark, the basic premise being they're going to purchase a rare book for $1 million that the Belgian will get to them, and then they can sell it again for 2.5 million in Mexico. But of
Well,
course, it's not really a rare book. They
and it's
are
kind of
just
and
a
it's
way to get
also
$1 million out of Penelope.
and it's sort of set up of the thing of like, no, we're legitimate antiquities dealers. Oh, but you used to be smugglers, and that's kind of where the Belgian character, the curator, like turns it of being the like, oh, I used to know you when character, and it
Yeah.
brings up sort of a sordid past with the brothers that is like very enticing and delicious.
Yes. um, and can I also say that in this section, um, there is a a long take of Rachel Weiss doing Penelope doing one of her many hobbies, adopted hobbies, and Rachel Weiss, the actress, actually pulling it off, of a card trick that is a long take while she is delivering a long heartfelt monologue about uh, more of her backstory and the childhood that she had growing up with her ailing mother. And there's a moving camera involved, and it's like close up trick. It's like close up magic
Like
because the
card,
camera's
like
right on. Yeah, it's a
the
card deck.
card
I mean,
trick.
I can't
Yeah,
explain it to you, but she pulls all of the aces out of the deck, all the queens, all the kings, that kind of thing. Just shout out to Rachel Weisz for the
dude,
incredible skills at. She actually learned how to do that and
truly.
made it happen in a one take wonder. So don't know how many times they did to get the take, but
While
she pulled it off while being completely uh,
effortlessly, like
in the scene, which is incredible.
effortlessly doing this incredibly complicated card trick while giving like a beautiful monologue about her life. Um,
Hmm.
and it's so it's so beautiful. And again, why actors are good at their jobs.
I suggest we take another quick break and then head into the rest of this episode. And we're back. Uh, so when we left off, the brothers had just hooked Penelope into the smuggler's lifestyle. The grift. Um, they need to procure a very rare book from a museum.
In
Oh, wait,
Prague.
no. Rather, the grift is that they get to Prague and the Belgian pulls a fast one on Penelope, who has by now completely has gotten completely taken with the smuggler's lifestyle and is doodling in her notebook of like Penelope the smuggler, which of course
Let's form a smugglers gang. Fuck
is
yes.
very endearing to Bloom, but also very troubling to him because he does not want this girl who he clearly is falling for to get into the smuggler's lifestyle that he knows is nothing but a trap. So the Belgian plays Penelope and tells her and her alone that he needs $1,000,000. She gives it to him, not thinking twice about it, so that he can procure the book. But of course, that is the grift. Uh, he absconds with the money when the brothers Bloom, Bang Bang, and Penelope show up at his apartment. He has not actually absconded. He's hiding in the thing because this is all a ruse from the brothers Bloom. At
He's
this
hiding in an
point,
armoire. It's very funny.
yes, at this point, the grift should be over. I'm pretty sure is what is supposed to happen. But Penelope is gung ho about the smuggler lifestyle, and is convinced that she herself can get into the Prague castle where this rare book is housed and get the book and get out with it, so that they can still get the $2.5 million for selling it. So they concoct a new plan since this girl won't leave them alone and opt to get into the Prague castle. But of course, Penelope switches Bang Bang's bombs up, and instead of a very tiny distraction
It's like a
in the
massive
castle,
terrorist
there's a
attack.
gigantic fucking bomb goes off in like the north wing of the spire of the castle or whatever. So everybody's clearing out, but undeterred, Penelope goes headfirst into the castle of who the security is battening down the hatches, and this inexperienced woman is going to go in and steal a very rare book from the archives. So Bloom and of course everybody is freaked out because who knows if is she going to make it. uh, as long as she doesn't do anything stupid. Cut to her crawling very
In the
loudly
vents.
through the vents and all of the security guards and police looking up at it. She falls out. Seems like game over. And yet the brothers Bloom watch her get out of a car with the chief of police,
Chief of
supposedly.
police of Prague. Yeah.
And she does some sweet talking and
He,
gets away with the book. Now, this
he
part I don't quite understand. This was the part where I was like starting to misremember things and be like,
mm,
so this is her conning them, right? Like that was my assumption
right.
at this
It's a
point.
con within a con.
Like she's played them this whole time and she's the con artist, right? But I guess not. Like I guess this is just a part where she is just cute and gets away with stealing a rare book.
The chief of police says something in Czech. He says something to the effect of like, "It was a pleasure meeting you. You are such a beautiful young woman, and I've had a lovely time with you." Basically, like he says something to that effect in
So
Czech.
she charms him, I
He
guess.
charms the goddamn pants off of this Czech like chief of police.
Yeah.
Um, which like my experience of the Czech police would lead me to believe that that is not the case, that they are an uncharmable people.
Yeah, they are. They have a high resistance to charm.
They
Their
do.
charm resistance is like plus 20 on their
It's like a
D&D
plus.
character sheets.
They get like a +5 to any intimidation rolls and like charisma checks. It's like
They've
really
seen some
annoying.
shit.
They've
Yeah.
seen some shit.
For you, that
Uh,
must be the worst. Just like,
it's
why is none of my fast talking hijinks getting any of these people aroused?
Can I tell you that when people are not charmed by me, I am utterly disarmed. I have nothing else. I'm
You've got
like,
no defenses. You don't know what to do.
because I'm like, I am a tall, gangly Victorian boy who should live in a tower. Like, nothing about me is intimidating. The only thing I have is my wits about me. Um,
Right.
yeah, no, if I can't charm my way out of a situation, I'm fucking lost. I can't.
Yeah.
There's nothing. I'm like, that's the end of the road. I'll just go dive off a cliff. Oh my god.
I'll stop now forever.
I'll stop
Um,
forever.
Speaking of diving off a cliff, the next important thing that happens in the movie is that while while nursing his wounds and absconding with his wistful heart, Bloom, hanging out at a bar, encounters him and his brother's childhood mentor slash tormentor, the
uh,
Diamond Dog.
this fucking
Um,
guy.
Emotional outbursts and violence ensue.
This fucking guy.
Yeah, Harold Fagin, the Diamond Dog. Can I also just say that I love that I noticed in my notes I was calling all of these characters by their character names.
Not
Uh,
the actor name.
A
Yes.
Yeah, it's because like they just clearly that's good writing because the names are memorable and somehow speak to their character. Of course, it also has to do with characters like these where you get con man names, classic heist movie stuff where you have names like the Curator and the Diamond Dog. It's like
Right.
very memorable. But this guy is maybe we don't see much of him and he plays he's just the perfect villain. There
Yeah.
is clearly some kind of like very vindictive and distinct childhood trauma around the Diamond Dog. I think he must have
You.
physically beat these boys within an inch of their life when they were young, but also
I.
taught them a lot of tricks of the trade, one
I
must
mean,
assume.
he's like Fagin and Oliver Twist, right? Like he's
Oh, yeah,
the.
there you go.
He's that's sort of the. There's also so many fucking literary references in this that I'm like, you are such a nerd, Ryan Jensen, and I love you.
Yeah, he obviously reads a lot more.
While he is not in a lot of the film, the 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 interactions that Bloom and Steven have with him very clearly set up that like yes, he was definitely physically abusive towards both of these boys and they had drastically different responses to that like as people are wont to do when confronted with violence and childhood trauma. They both had different reactions to that of like Steven's reaction was fight and Bloom's reaction was freeze. But also, you kind of get the sense that they're, I don't know, I feel like there's an undercurrent that there may have been like sexual abuse on the part of Bloom, like with Bloom specifically.
Mhm.
Um, they kind of insinuate that, and
I could see that. Yeah.
just the way that like that Fagin is like specifically handsy with him in the way that like a perpetrator of abuse is sort of like I own you, like
Yeah.
you're mine. Um, but
They do
it
a great job of insinuating that in a way that is clear but not direct.
well, it's clear, but it's never
It's a great
stated. It's never
that's
stated.
right. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
They do a great. It's sort of like they do it in Lawrence of Arabia really well
Mhm.
in the scene where the Turkish
Yeah.
captain of the guard or something uh, clearly has kind of a fixation on Lawrence,
Yes.
and there's a lot of
Yes.
story told there through eye contact and body language that a movie of the time wouldn't have gotten away with saying explicitly, but that you, as a viewer of a visual medium, get and understand immediately. So
Yeah,
yeah,
you
kudos
intuit
to them for
it.
pulling that off in a way that is, yeah, that doesn't need to be stated out loud, but speaks loud and clear.
Yeah, and it also and I think also that difference having because then sort of what happens next is that Bloom is kind of like obviously tensing and like wanting to retaliate, but is essentially frozen. He's like paralyzed.
Mhm.
Um,
I know, poor Bloom. He's
which
got so much to work through.
he has so much to work through, which also makes sense a lot of times, unfortunately, with like victims of childhood sexual abuse. Like
Mhm.
freezing is a very real reaction to that. And when I think this specific scene really does further complement Steven and Bloom's relationship in terms of why, even if they hate each other, they're always there for each other and they always love each other. Because Steven's immediate reaction is violence, is like, get the fuck away from my brother. Like, I'm gonna kill you next time I see you. Right? Like
Mhm.
it's that ultimate like older sibling, I'm protecting my younger brother. Like I'm
Yeah.
protecting him.
Yeah.
And it speaks to kind of like that's who ultimately for all of his like pomp and circumstance and flash and all of that stuff, Steven, I think, views himself as Bloom's protector. Like he views himself as like Bloom's ultimate protector. Like
Totally.
that's
100%.
his where his heart is. Like his heart is with Bloom and no one else. And it yeah, it's a very again, in those things of like they're not verbally explained. You have to be like watching the film and watching those little moments and those intricacies
Mhm.
of camera work, all of that stuff to like get to get to a fuller understanding of the characters as a whole.
Yeah. Um, Before we move on from Diamond Dog, I just want to make a note that you can tell in the way it's shot that there is some sort of reverence for this person, by which I mean the actor. Like typically, this would be a person
Yes.
who would show up in the movie, and you'd be like, "This is a like a Anthony Hopkins type person," the way that they're filming this. But I mean, I didn't know who he was at first, so looking him up, this is the Diamond Dog is portrayed by Maximilian Schell, who's a Swiss actor. He won the Academy Award in 1961 for Best Actor for his representation in Judgment at Nuremberg. So he is,
Fuck.
yeah, so he's got evil kind of written all over him. Well, to be
Yes.
perfectly honest, I didn't look further than this. I don't know if he plays a Nazi or if he plays the prosecutor of the Nazis, but either way, he's associated with a kind of,
Look at
very
his
dark,
look at
intense
his
movie from classical Hollywood cinema times.
look at his face and figure it out. You know what I'm saying?
Well, do you know?
No, I have no idea. I don't know. I'm making value judgments about people.
You shouldn't do that.
I'm the younger sibling. Nothing I say matters.
Well, to me it does.
Aw,
Maximilian
thanks.
Schell in Judgment at Nuremberg. Well, his character name is Hans Rolf, so there's
That
that.
doesn't that doesn't super speak well for him being like the American prosecutor of the Nazis in Nuremberg. Jesus.
Yeah, Hans Rolf
Oh
uh,
God.
was a okay. Yeah, he was okay. So he was the defense lawyer of the Nazis in the Judgment. He was Hans Rolf in real life was a German lawyer who served as the defense counsel for ex-Nazi judges Ernst Jannings, Emil Hahn, Werner Lomp, and Friedrich Hofstadter during the 1948 trial at Nuremberg. So there you go. So yeah,
So
he
he's
played
worse
a
than a
Nazi
Nazi.
sympathizer.
He's
Yeah.
a worse than a Nazi. He's a Nazi defense lawyer. Fuck off.
Hmm.
Good lord.
There you go.
Jesus.
Hey, won the best actor award.
He won
So
Best Actor. He did it great. We're not saying that this actor is any of those things, obviously,
uh,
but good lord.
yeah, but
Um,
yeah, great, great casting in
yes,
that sense. It's like,
yes.
oh, this guy is gonna, for
He just
people that know, he's
exudes
gonna
evil,
read as like just fucking evil.
which is how he reads every time he shows up. He reads just super fucking evil. Um,
Yes. So our characters have the book. They've encountered Diamond Dog, and now Penelope is still around. She has not absconded yet. She has not. I've used absconded a lot. She hasn't left yet, and she continues to be into this lifestyle situation.
she's like taken with the romance of
Yes. Oh, and
of
speaking of, before we move on to our next location, I feel like it's worth mentioning the train orgasm scene where she and Bloom are like having a little moment in the train car,
But
and
they're
she's
just
like,
chatting. They're just chatting.
yes, yes. And she goes full fucking manic pixie neurodivergent, like, oh, girls gone wild moment where she's getting a little drunk. She's like, I love the sound of the rain, and I love the sound of the train, and I love the sound of the go, 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 go. And it's like a Harry Met Sally moment when she's
Yep.
like, oh my God. Wow. She's like feeling the gyrations of the
Abs.
train or something.
And again, fantastic comedic editing because you
Hmm.
get this whole scene of like they're
Yeah,
they
this buildup of like
just
sexual
build up, build
energy
up, build
and
up.
yeah.
And then you get Bloom on the other side of the door being like, good night, and then just closing the door
Yeah,
and
no,
walking away.
the sequence is chugga 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 chugga. Woo woo. Ah, I'm so horny directly to camera. Cut to the door. Good night. It's just oh my god.
We've
Oh
all been
man.
there.
No. Yeah,
We've
no.
all been there, right? Go.
I think
Um,
this is also the moment in the movie before that particular right, it's the same scene, but when it starts where Penelope calls Bloom, emotionally constipated.
yes, in your fucking soul.
Oh, that's what she says. She says,
I
"I
think
think
you're
you're
constipated.
constipated in your fucking soul."
And I was like, real read, Penelope. Jesus.
Yeah, yeah. Uh,
But
she
also
she calls him like she sees him.
but also again, I wish I was as free as Penelope. You
Yeah,
know?
totally. Unconstrained by, just about any social convention you could
I
think of.
know. I mean, I feel like I'm like 70% there. Um,
Mhm.
and the 30% is just like me clinging to any hopes of a career. It's
Yes.
just me trying like so hard to be a professional person. Um,
Mhm.
okay, so they're on this train, all of the
Well,
things.
I think the next
Oh no,
section
yeah,
is we're heading to Mexico now. They've got the
we're
book.
going to Mexico.
Yeah, so now they're gonna sell the book. They're heading off to they're heading off to Mexico. I mean, what happens here is that the brothers essentially at this point it's become clear and obvious that
Bloom is in love.
Bloom is in love with
Bloom is in
Penelope, and of
love. Yeah,
course, we've set up early on that, like, the only way this con could go wrong is if you fall in love with her, which is what Steven tells Bloom early on,
which is
and it's
accurate. That's the only
mhm,
way it can go wrong.
and yet he
They
does it, he can't help himself.
they stage this whole, they Bloom kind of has this moment of like, I am in love with you. He doesn't say that outright, but he essentially is like, everything is a con. Up to
Mhm,
this point, this is a con. You are a mark. I am coming clean.
yeah,
That's what's happening, right?
yeah,
Like, cut, dried. We're gonna get your money back. We're gonna gonna go home. Like, I have to be honest with you because I like love you and respect you, essentially. And even that, Steven has accounted for as part of the con because
Yeah.
fucking Steven is always there. Um,
Yeah.
and it and again, it plays out in this whole like emotional thing, and there's a a gun falls off a table and it shoots
The brothers
Steven.
fight. Yeah, the
The
electricity
brothers
goes out.
fight, the electricity goes out,
Mhm.
and throughout this whole movie also, it should be noted, there is a million little tiny things, but they've set up this whole thing of, like, when a squib, like a false bullet, right, that, like, it hits and it pops a blood thing and it looks like you got
Yeah, it's really
shot.
about the fake blood, yeah.
It's about the fake blood, but it's like, oh, it tastes like tinfoil when those go off, it, like, bleh, like, tastes like
Mhm.
tinfoil in your mouth,
Yeah. So
and
does
they
real
set
blood, they mention.
so does real blood. They set up this whole thing of how, like, the only bad thing about squibs is that they real blood turns brown after half an hour, and
Mhm.
squibs don't, right? They're still bright red.
Yeah.
Um, and
Mhm.
so they've kind of set this up again from the beginning of the film, right? Like, from the very beginning, their first con. And so it's this whole in Mexico, it's this whole emotional scene with the brothers and they're struggling and they're fighting and Steven gets shot. And then it's, oh my God, Bloom is like, they're making up after this emotional moment and they're, holding each other and all of this stuff. And with the expectation of like, Penelope, just go, get out, go. You need to leave.
Mhm.
And again, why she is such a fantastic character. She's like, kind of does the, like, you can see the mental gymnastics going, and then she's like, "Oh, I'm not." She doesn't say anything, but she just very with, like, great concentration on her face, goes over and pulls the squib pack out of Steven's jacket.
The brothers are found out.
They are beaten at their own game by their mark, and it is beautiful.
Yes.
Fantastic.
So Bloom is heartbroken.
Ugh,
Penelope is heartbroken.
so
We
sad.
see Bloom is angry too. He tried to get Penelope out. It didn't
That was
work. He also
that was
can't
his
have her. So he
that was
punches
his
Steven in the face and says goodbye for a while again.
I don't know what it would take for me to punch you in the face, but it would be a lot. Like, a lot.
I'm sure I could come up with something.
For you to punch me in the face?
No,
Oh,
no, I'm sure I could come up with something that would make you wanna punch me in the face.
I mean, maybe. I I don't know.
When
I
you
don't
figure
know.
out what it is, let me know so I can either avoid doing it or do it
Or
depending
do
on
it
my
and just
mood.
get it out of the way. If it was ever something where you were just like, "Hit me in the face as hard as you can," like, that I would do, like, no questions asked. I would do that in a heartbeat.
Mhm.
But, like, I'm saying, like, I don't know what it would take for me to hit you in the face out of anger. I don't know what that threshold is because 'cause we've never
Yeah.
crossed it.
Yeah, well, life is long, so
Life is long. I mean, we got at least another, like, I don't know, like, 5 to 10 years probably.
Yeah, wouldn't it be great if we were just, like, 80 years old and finally got up the gumption to
Dude,
just have a knockdown, drag out physical brawl, and then we just
I
broke all of our bones and went to the hospital that way?
I okay, I'm gonna make you a deal right now. You make it to 90, I'll be 87.
Mhm.
Oh, it'll flip birth years because I was born in
Oh,
90,
yeah,
you're
that'll
in
be cool.
87. Okay, so
Nice.
when you're 90 and I'm 87,
Mhm.
we can absolutely 100% have a knockdown, drag out, no holds barred fist fight.
Oh.
I'm gonna start taking kickboxing now. I'm gonna fucking murder you. No, I'm kidding. I would never do that. Oh my god, that's a horrible thing to say. I would never do that.
My ribs are already broken from
I
falling down
just,
the stairs.
I mean, I'm 34 now and I feel like I'm approximately 75, so I'm
Yeah,
just
maybe you'll
saying,
Benjamin Button the whole situation. You'll get stronger as you get older.
wouldn't that be amazing? Wouldn't that be amazing? But right
Yes.
now, right now in our like quote unquote physical prime, um,
Yes.
yeah, I don't think I would be able to hit you in the face hard.
I understand.
Also I have delicate teeny hands. Yeah.
Okay, I'm bored with this synopsis, so I'm gonna go fast. 3 months later, St. Petersburg. Okay, so Penelope finds Bloom again, and they want to be, but she still wants to be a con woman. She still wants to do this. Um, P.S. By the way, while this whole movie has been happening, like Bang Bang and Penelope have been having these like cute little like girly
They're
moments on the
best
bed, and they're like
friends.
looking at each other's like picture books or whatever, and like Penelope's learning how to make bombs from Bang Bang. It's
And
like
Bing Bing's learning
they're
how to make
having their
pinhole.
whole. Oh
She's like
yeah,
learning
Bang
how to
Bang
make
learns to
pinhole.
make pinhole cameras. I forgot about that. So they have their whole own other
They
like little movie that's
are
going on the
besties.
side of like the brothers having their fucking drama and Bloom and Penelope falling in love.
So
Like
so accurate also to like most female friendships I have observed. It's just like, I don't know, the boys are being emotional. We just want to hang out. Like,
they're just we'll just fucking learn how to make pinhole cameras and yeah, make some things. So Penelope has Bang Bang's number, which is never given out to anybody else, even Steven or Bloom at all. So she's like, I found you because of Bang Bang. So, but anyway, 3 months, everybody's had some time to think, some time to chill out, some time to whatever. Penelope still down to be a con person. It's unclear if she still like has the feelings for Bloom, but she definitely is like, I want to like this. No, this is my life now. And
but I
Bloom is
think,
like, you suck. This sucks. You can't do this. You're better than this. Nah, get out of here, boy. Get
but
out of
I
here, old yeller.
it's it's a real like Bloom is pulling a real white fang on Penelope of like, get away from me. I'm unlovable. Fuck off. Be away. And all Penelope is doing is just like making bids for affection. She's like,
Yeah.
no, you are lovable. No, those feelings were real. No, I do want to do this. No, I'm here. Like I'm with it. Like she's also, it's like again, the perfect like whatever psychological term that is, what like avoidant secure attachment or whatever. Like Bloom is like textbook avoidant. She's like
Yeah.
textbook secure. She's just like, I just really think you're fun and I like you and I love you and stuff. And we should hang out more. And he's like, no, I'm too sad.
And those are the type of people who should be with each other. Don't you
Yes.
avoidant people go getting
With an
with an
anxious.
anxious avoidant.
No.
There's consequences. Let's just put it that way.
There's
Um,
consequences.
so the brothers, specifically Steven, who now reaches back, Bloom reaches back out to, they're like, okay, let's set the final motion in the final thing in motion to
The big finish.
the big finish. And I'll be honest, I lost the thread of the thing here, but I think the big finish is intended to be, okay, for real, get Penelope out of this life. It seems like Steven is doing this to sort of try to help Bloom and give him what he thinks he
Well,
wants.
and we've also had set up throughout this that whenever Bloom has questioned Steven, is this a con? Are
Yeah.
you playing me? Right? Like when that kind of 5% doubt spikes.
Hmm.
Every single time Steven has said, the day I con you is the day I die, brother.
Yeah.
Like, I would
Yes.
never essentially, like, I would never do that, and foreshadowing, that's all I'm saying.
Right. So, in an attempt to finish the con and to try to actually get Penelope to go away, essentially, which I think Steven realizes like Bloom doesn't want, but
It's
he's like, I'm gonna go along with this. He hires the Diamond Dog to pose as a because Penelope has not met him. Steven hires a Diamond Dog to pose as a Russian mobster to pull off the final faking of both of the brothers' deaths, and to also sell off the book. So ostensibly, they're going to sell the book that she has, which they never completed because it was all a ruse. But they're still keeping that alive, and they're going to kill themselves off. They're going to stage this big shootout with the Russian mob, and it'll appear like they both died, and Penelope can go on and live a crime-free lifestyle for the rest of her days. But as they start getting it together, as they're driving down the road to the checkpoint, they're ambushed by Diamond Dog early. It's a complete
yes.
surprise to everybody, seemingly. And Steven is kidnapped away and leaving them to wonder what's going on. Bang Bang also blows up in a car, supposedly.
Supposedly.
And yes, and at this point, as you set up, this is where the dramatic questions that or rather the questions that Bloom is questioning in himself start to come to the surface, because it's like it the emotional turmoil is like, am I lovable because I'm a grifter? I feel like I can't trust myself, but that's represented through his brother. And at
Yeah,
this point he's starting to wonder, can I really trust my brother?
and
A
that's
big
the turn.
Yes, and a big question and a piece of the puzzle that falls in place for him is that Penelope has said that she has exactly 1.75 million that she can use. And in the kidnapping note that Bloom finds in
Well, wait, that's
Steven's
the
notebook.
it's the setup that Steven says when he's trying to get Bloom back for this, like, final one, like, final 2.01. He's
Mhm,
like, "I think she's good for 1.75 million."
mhm.
He sets that up, and then when they get the ransom note for Steven, it says, "Wire 1.75 million," and that is when Bloom
Doesn't
goes,
she also say she has that amount of money, though?
she has, like, untold amount of money, like, she has, like, oodles of money,
I guess
but
I'm
it's
misremembering it. Yeah, so
but it's the,
Steven
like,
says that,
Steven
so
sets up, "I can get 1.75 million out of her,"
mhm.
and then they go through all this stuff, and Bloom starts to think, "Oh oh my god, like, my brother's actually been kidnapped by the Russian
Conning me. Yeah.
mafia. He's
Mhm.
actually been kidnapped by the Russian mafia. Oh my god, we have to pay this ransom and do all this stuff, and, like, Penelope's involved now, blah, blah, blah." But then when Penelope reads the ransom note and says it's 1.75 million, Bloom go Bloom is just like, "Fucking bastard. It's been a con this whole time." Like, that
Mhm.
5% suddenly becomes 95% of not believing his
Yeah,
brother. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like,
But, of course, the 5% that says it could be real is like, just wire the money. So
just do it.
because if there's a 5% chance that your brother isn't lying, you're still gonna wire the money to make sure he can
Yeah,
live.
exactly.
So so, this leads us into dun, 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 the finale, the final scene, the showdown, where as we've stated before, Bloom is uncertain as to whether he can trust his brother. Supposedly, he's going into this. Um, Now he's going into this church, this abandoned church, where his brother is supposedly being held. If the Diamond Dog is cool with everything, then he will give up Steven and make away with the money that has been wired to him. Um, so Bloom's uncertain as whether he can trust his brother. Maybe he's conning Bloom for his detriment or benefit.
We don't
Bloom
know.
cannot be sure. But like a good sibling, Bloom goes into the church to save him anyway.
Anyway, doesn't matter.
In the ensuing everything, Stephen is in there strapped to a chair with a gun to his head by a shadowy figure. Um, Bloom continues to ask out loud, "Is this a trick? Tell me if this is fake or not. You have to let me know." And then Stephen says, "It's real. It's real." In the ensuing kerfuffle, Bloom pulls out a gun and attempts to shoot the Russian mobster behind Stephen. And in all the brouhaha, Stephen uh, gets shot, which of course freaks Bloom out until he realizes, insisting, "Show me that this is not real. Tell me you just pulled off the greatest con." Stephen flips out, does a backflip essentially out of it, and
And
says,
it's
"I
like,
got
"Come on,
you pretty good, didn't
I
I?"
got you."
And everybody's happy, and they play it off. And of course, Bloom is happy that his brother is okay, and he's like, "This is our final con, you know?" So at this point, Steven insists that Bloom go off and be with Penelope. He knows that he's in love with Penelope and wants the best for him, and tells him he'll see him later. Importantly, he also does a card trick that I
This has
I
also
think
been
they've
set
set up.
up
Yeah, that this is a
throughout,
card trick that he doesn't pull off, or it's not impressive to anybody. It's like a guess what the card is, and then he
and
pulls
he
it up.
just pulls a card and it never is the
Yeah,
card, and he's always
yeah,
like, "But imagine if that was, that'd be the best card trick you'd ever seen."
yeah. So as Bloom begins to leave, Steven does the card trick, and he's got this great line where he's like,
Bloom
uh,
says,
Bloom is like, that is very impressive. You finally did
"The
it. You
best
know, I
card trick
wish
I've
you."
ever seen.
Yeah,
Best
best
card
card
trick I've
trick.
ever seen."
I wish you had a bigger audience. To which Steven replies, "You're the only audience I ever needed." At which point I bawled my eyes out. Um,
Yeah.
so Bloom and Penelope are driving away. Steven says, "I'll catch up with you later. I'll see you. I'll see you in a few months. We'll catch up. The way that you make your escape and con
Yeah.
men find each other later." And of course, denouement, as Bloom and Penelope are driving away, Bloom looks down at the blood on the collar of his shirt, Steven's blood, and realizes that it's turning brown, which means that it's real blood. At which point he realizes that Steven really did con him. He convinced him that he wasn't shot. He convinced him that it was a con on his part. And he let Bloom go to live his best life, knowing that Steven wouldn't be around to influence him anymore and be a part of it in the way that Bloom, always held a kind of magnetic detraction to, despite their,
It's
magnetic relationship.
and it's one line that, um, they set up in the very first act that is a recurring theme is, that yeah, wait, I wrote it down. The perfect con is one in which each person involved gets exactly what they wanted. Like, that's the perfect con,
I
right?
know. And
It
everybody got what they wanted. Penelope gets an exciting life of adventure and a connection with a person that she never had. Bloom's heart is able to open up and accept that and accept that with a life of crime behind him, he can open himself up to a love of his life. And Steven finally gets to play the perfect con and play the perfect card trick to the only audience that ever mattered to him, his little brother. So
It's the line of like the final, and it's also just the way that it's staged too, because it's sort of in this dilapidated, like, I don't know if it's a church or if it's like a theater or something, but there's a stage. Um,
actually, yeah, I thought it was a theater too, but it makes more sense that it's a. Or I thought it was a church too, but
I
I
think it's a
think a
theater.
stage
It's like
makes
this
more
kind
sense.
of
Yeah.
dilapidated theater because the framing and the visuals of when Bloom is leaving and is saying, "That's the best card trick I've ever seen. I wish you had a bigger audience in this abandoned, dilapidated theater." The it's it is a challenging thing to put into words how hard Steven's line of "You're the only audience I ever needed" hits. Like, it it is a hard thing to put into words, especially in the context of a sibling relationship.
Hmm.
Because I mean, I not to sorry, I'm not to get too, like, too real, too blue or whatever, like, it's a pretty intense ending, and
Yeah.
it's that there is a there is a sense that I think is so perfectly captured in that of, like, "You're the only audience I ever needed," which is, I don't give a shit about the rest of the world. I don't care. Like,
Hmm.
you're the only person I was ever trying to make happy. You're the only person's life I was ever trying to make better.
Yeah.
That is, I feel, as somebody that loves my sibling, my brother, very much, of that rings so true of, like, the pomp and the circumstance and the showmanship and the flash and the whatever, like, that's all in service to the greater mission, which is, like,
Hmm.
I just wanna make your life a little bit better. I just wanted
Yeah.
to make your life a little better. I wanted to make your life a little bit more, like, magical and special,
Hmm.
and I didn't give a shit about anybody else. I never did. I never cared about anybody else.
Yeah.
Um,
No, it hit hard for me too, because yeah, I felt the same way in many ways. It's like, yeah, it's all, when it comes down to it, it's the people you've known the longest that matter the most. And, who do you know longer and have more of a connection with than your brother, than your sibling? It's
accurate.
a, it's a very, yeah. I mean, good job, fucking Ryan Johnson, for
Fucking
giving us all the
Ryan,
goddamn feels, you stupid bastard.
you
Now I
stupid
remember,
bastard.
now I know I haven't watched this movie again for 15
It's
years.
yeah, and again, cut this out. This is probably gonna get, like, way too deep, way too quickly. Um, this movie, I had the same reaction because I've watched this movie several times, but it's one that I don't, like, go back to in the same way that I do with, like, Knives Out or, like, Glass Onion. Um,
Hmm.
and I think partially, or a big part of the reason is because the thought of outliving you, Evan
Hmm.
Winter, is horrifying. Do you know what I mean? But it's that thing of where it's like, do you wanna die first so that
Hmm.
you don't have to deal with it, or do you wanna not so you remember, it's like that.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
such a challenging thing, and obviously, like, hopefully, we're many, many decades away from it, But I think that's one of the reasons that I watched this movie, I've seen this movie a few times, and it's also hard to watch because of the ending, because I'm like,
Mhm.
I don't wanna think about my brother dying. I don't
Yeah.
wanna think
Shit.
about that. I don't
Yeah, of
wanna think
course.
about
I don't
that at
wanna think about
all.
you dying either. That would suck.
Yeah.
Fucking,
Yeah. It would fucking
donkey
suck.
dick.
Yeah, it was like colossal doggy tag. It would be like the worst thing ever. Um, and however, I think the other thing, just in terms of the sibling dynamic, I think the thing that this nailed so, so fully about siblings is like, yes, there's tension. Yes, there's arguments. Yes, there's hatred. Yes, there's like disagreements, whatever. But at the end of the day, like the the emotional core of the film is that for like all of the fluff and all of the sort of like external stuff about Steven, at the end of the day, he could see the full story arc and he realized that his character needed to die for his brother to be happy
Mhm.
in a way. And it's a fucking rough way to end a movie. It is a rough way to end a movie. And
Yeah, and yet it's exactly what the
it's
ending of that
it's
what the
exactly
ending of that movie needed to be.
it
They
is. It's
set everything up, and it's
exactly
very poignant. This movie should be a goddamn classic, and it's
it.
not. I don't think people have I don't know, whatever. I won't make big assumptions about people, but it the whole movie feels like of another era when people made movies with big resonant themes and could handle stuff like that, like I don't
Yeah,
know. I
and
just, it feels like like it has the same it's going for the same kind of emotional stakes as like I don't know, what was like a big movie from like the 50s, like HUD or something, just something with like very big
yeah,
stakes and tragedy, but tragedy that is also uplifting in a strange way.
yeah, and that's I think that is one of the reasons that Ryan Johnson is such a fantastic writer, because writers are great observers.
Yeah.
Writers are great observers of good writers are good observers of human nature. And because they're good observers of human nature, they're able to imbue their characters with a sense of like I think we talked about this when we talked about Princess Mononoke, right? Of like there aren't really villains and there aren't really heroes, because villains and heroes don't super exist in real life. Um,
Mhm.
Everybody has their own motivations and their own things that they're working through and whatever. But the the reason that I really wanted to do this film as part of the sibling season is because this is there are and a few of them we will a couple of the others that I think of in this same genre we will talk about later in the season, but The Brothers Bloom is one of my favorite depictions of a sibling relationship in film.
Yeah.
It's
Same. 10 out of 10, but
10
we're
out of
not at that
10.
section yet.
Yeah, it's a hard relationship dynamic to nail, because it is, I would argue, one of the most nuanced relationships that you have in your life, especially as an adult. Like
Mhm.
when you have gone through like childhood, adolescence, early adulthood, and then you're like into your adult years in your mid 20s and beyond.
Mhm.
That is a, I mean, that is a decades long, nuanced ass relationship, right? Like I have known you since the moment I began breathing.
Mhm. I know. Yeah. I know.
Like,
I know.
you had a 3-year reprieve of, like
I did not even know it was a reprieve. I was
But,
not
like,
even aware of that yet.
it was there, it was happening. But, like but that's the thing of, like, when you know someone for that long and you've I again, we're gonna go off on another tangent really quick. I'm
All
so
right.
sorry. In Slaughterhouse-Five, there's this whole idea that the alien beings don't experience linear time the same way that we do, and so when they see a person, they they move through time. They exist in the fourth dimension, so they move through time. So the way that they perceive reality is that when they see a person, they see all versions of that person, right? From like baby to old to like
Mhm.
their dying breath as one, as like one unified
Mhm.
being.
Yeah.
And there is a sense of that I think there are very few relationships in our lives that we have the breadth of time that like I feel that a lot when I talk to you, when I talk to Rosina, when I talk to Alex. People like obviously I've known you the longest, my entire life, but there is a sense of you experience people in all times, right?
Mhm.
You and I think that's the special and unique thing about siblings is that you know that person when they were 2 and 20 and 15 and 50 and 10 and 35. Like,
Mhm.
as you move through the world, like, you see them as this full encapsulation of being, and it's very special and it's very unique.
Yeah,
Yeah,
completely
that was it.
agree. Yeah, I love that Slaughterhouse-Five allegory. Yeah, knowing people over a course of a long time, you get to know what changes about them and what doesn't change about them.
Yeah.
Uh, well, I count myself lucky that I got to have such a cool, interesting, smart, and intelligent sibling in my life who can stay interesting over the course of my life because it would suck if we were both boring.
Oh my god, Evan, it would suck so hard if I didn't talk to you. Like,
Yeah.
genuinely,
No, I
genuinely.
know.
It
I'm
would
yeah.
suck so hard if we didn't like each other.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, you're the fucking best, man. You're the fucking best. I don't know what else to say. You're the best. You're my
Thank you.
favorite.
Well, you too. Me as well. Let's wrap this thing up.
Let's fucking end this shit. Been
Yeah.
talking for fucking hours.
Unless you
I'm eating
have
a mango. There's so
unless
much
you wanna
other Here's the thing. There's so much other shit I could say about this movie. I've said it all. It's fine. Go watch it. Go watch this movie. It's fucking fantastic. We're gonna do final thoughts and vibes.
I think everybody should watch this movie. It's
Everybody,
truly, truly, truly great movie.
everyone
And
should watch
unsung in its time and now today as well.
everyone should watch this movie. It's I think honestly, if I was to put together a list of like top 10 films of all time, like any genre, anytime, anything, Brothers Bloom would be on it.
It reminded me why I love movies. So, I mean, can one have a better compliment than that as a film lover? I
No,
don't know.
no.
Let's get into some thoughts and takeaways. Mayor, we've talked at length about what we think about this movie, our thoughts. There's a lot we took away from it, but give us the encapsulation. Give us
Mm,
the give us the f- give
I'll
us a
try.
idea
I'll do
of
my
how
best.
this feels.
So here's some version of what I've pre-written, and some of it is going to be off the dome.
Love it.
Love it.
Dome it
So
up.
if the perfect con is one in which each person involved gets exactly what they want, then the Brothers Bloom is the perfect con. It's a perfect card trick. It's vaudeville. It's a magician pretending to fumble before making an impossibly unbelievable save. It's an encapsulation of a beautiful and specific dynamic that is wrapped in such a specific aesthetic language that it blends noir themes and contemporary themes, and it is ultimately a timeless film. It's a timeless piece of cinema. It exists wherever you are. It exists wherever you are existing.
Mm-hmm.
And the care and specificity with which each character, each scene, each character interaction and development is handled makes me feel so, me, the viewer, completely enraptured and feel in a 2-hour film, which is a decently long runtime, I did not notice the time passing with all the twists and the turns. And I think that is a testament to Rian Johnson as a writer, primarily, and as a director, secondarily, of somebody who loves and is interested in and engages with narrative craft. He is a
Yeah.
master. He is letting his ideas and his words fit to a specific theme, a specific idea. It's not about him. It's not about his style or his, like, he is an auteur or he's a specific stylistic underpinning or whatever. It's that no matter what Rian Johnson touches, he's going to leave his mark on. And we
Mm-hmm.
just happen to be lucky enough that he left his mark on the Brothers Bloom, which is, I would say, overall, just, we've said it, you should watch this film. It is an unsung classic of American cinema. It is hyper specific without being overbearing. It's heartfelt without being saccharine. It's so deeply funny while it's not a comedy necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
It is it is, in my mind, one of those apexes of a master at the height of their craft serving the medium in which they are working. So I hope
Mm-hmm.
through all our meandering conversations about this film that you take away that you should absolutely take 2 hours, watch The Brothers Bloom. It is so worth your time. It it is the magic trick that will astound and amaze you long after you've left the theater
Yeah. Or the lazy boy in front of your television
or
set.
wherever you're watching.
I mean, I couldn't agree more. Um, this film is about showmanship. It's about how and why we play tricks on people. And in a way it's about why people love getting taken along for the ride, even when they know better. And partially, I love that this movie has meta commentary about art without being up its own ass about it.
Yes.
Because I think that there's this, because it's about showmanship and to a certain degree illusion, um, it's a sly way of expressing something about movies in general too, right? Because movies are trickery. They are they are lies that tell the truth. It is people acting as other people. It is constructed shots strung together through the association in our brains. The very way that film works is an illusion. It's still images strung together 24 frames a second to make the illusion that something is moving in front of you when really it's just a bunch of stills running quickly enough that you don't notice it. And cinema has its roots in many things: theater, photography, and painting, landscape port, uh, landscape painting in particular, but also very inspired by the work of magicians and illusionists at the turn of the 19th century. Uh,
Absolutely.
George Méliès being one of the first very truly captivating special effects filmmakers, whose entire background was as a stage magician, one of the best. So I think that it's fitting that a movie about con men also has something to say about the nature of why we get taken in by these stories. And it has a lot to say about why we love the people that tell them. Because I think that despite all of his uh, anger at Stephen Bloom or whatever you would call it, it's great because it's
Resentment,
always
whatever,
it's
yeah.
always played up as like, you know, he he's angry about where he's at in his own life, and he's angry to a certain degree of how Stephen got him there, but ultimately he never leaves him without saying I love you, he never leaves him without saying I'll see you again soon. Um and it's like Bloom wants to be taken in by Steven's story, and Steven wants Bloom to be taken in by him too. They both want this story to keep going, I think, and I think it's just a very poignant uh it's a very poignant story about what it means to be attached to someone emotionally, who means that much to you. And
Yeah.
it's great. And it's great because what rings true about it ultimately is that you would do anything for the sibling you love in this world to make sure that they're happy. And Stephen even makes that sacrifice, and Bloom ultimately is able to accept it. So it's a beautiful tale about how how tricks and illusions can obfuscate your feelings of love. And yet, also through that same trickery, sometimes you can find the love and the acceptance and the redemption that you were looking for all along. So it's a great tale.
It's a great movie. It's
Hmm.
beautifully told, beautifully written, beautifully acted. We didn't even, like, talk about any of the art department stuff, but, like, we'll have to save that for, like, another day. 'Cause
Hmm.
I have a million things I could say about every single piece of this film because every it's so I was telling Evan earlier, it's not interesting to say that a movie is perfect, and yet this
Right.
movie is perfect, and I don't and it you can yeah, every single thing about this is something that I love, every single piece of it. So,
Yeah.
um,
Ah, so good. Go check it
so
out.
good. Are
Put it
you
on the AFI Top 100 list, before I get mad that it's not included on any lists anywhere.
Are you ready for the most atonal shift in the history of podcasting?
Yes.
Tambok na siksi. Tambok, tambok. Tambok, tambok na siksi.
Vibe check.
Vibe check.
It's time for a vibe check. All right. So for those of you
I
who
don't think
maybe
it's the most atonal shift that we've done on this podcast yet.
it's like up there, I think. I think it's up there. I feel
I'm really looking forward to when we do like zone of interest and then we're like vibe check. Dark, depressing, horrifying,
like Nazis.
chilling.
I feel like I really committed very hard to that noise on the soundboard. And you know what? At this point, I'm committed and I'm never stopping. So that's fine.
You
So
never should stop. Don't ever stop, Mare. Let your light shine bright in this world.
literally,
Let your
yeah,
vibes vibrate the universe around you.
I don't.
Let it shake the fabric of life. Force
Okay.
everyone to dance. But yeah, tell me about the vibes of this movie. Tell me all about the vibes.
For those of you who may be listening for the first time, first of all, thank you and welcome. Um,
Fuck off now.
and now leave. Please leave. This wasn't about you, nor was it for you. Get out of here. So Evan and I do not rate things on a star system or a number system. We rate things. We rate films by two criteria and two criteria only, and that is how is the story and how are the vibes. With a bonus round this season, what is the sibling scale? So Evan, how are the vibes? How is the story? How are the vibes? Tell me everything. This is a highly subjective scale. We're always looking for new identifiers and new words.
The vibe is great. It rides the roller coaster of emotions like no other movie I've seen. Not unlike many movies I've seen. It's absurd. It's zany. It's like a Looney Tunes meets
Yes.
an old timey parable, and I love that about it. It uses exactly what it needs to at any given moment to tell its story in the most entertaining, the most fun, the most exciting, dramatic way possible. And in that sense, I think that they create a world that just feels delightful and fast paced and wonderful to exist in. So just high class vibes all around. I think, the plot is it's a con and a heist and a double cross kind of movie. So like that's fun. I sometimes got lost in the sauce of the details of what all those things were. Not too badly though, because in
It
true
doesn't
good
matter.
movie fashion, it focuses on the characters and like even if you've lost the thread of like, wait, was the book actually rare? Is it a real book? Is it a real unfake whatever? Like you trust that the filmmaker knows and that you're along for the ride because the characters are in the middle of such a good like they're just vibing their way through the story. So yeah, immaculate vibes if you ask me. Just absurd, old-timey but timeless. And then as far as the sibling scale, I mean, one of the best representations of siblings I've seen on screen in a long time. 10 out of 10 would recommend in my Yelp reviews.
Yes, surprising no one, I agree with you very strongly. The story is top tier. The story is very well considered. The story it hits everything you want it to. I feel like it has more of a 5-act structure than like a traditional 3-act structure,
Mm-hmm.
which in this case serves it really well. The vibes are fucking immaculate. Entire film, it sets it, it lays it, it's like fucking Simone Biles going in for a triple, quadruple, boobly doo handstand. I don't know what they're called, but it's just the like, you set it up, you lay it out, you
Yeah.
nail it at the finish. Boom, done. That's the vibes of this film.
Yeah.
It is
A
perfect.
card trick pulled off well.
It is a card trick pulled off well. But it's also like a card trick with like a fake out in the middle, that you don't see coming, but then also gets redirected. It's fantastic. And Sibling Scale, again, I can't think of many movies that nail it as hard as this movie does on the Sibling Scale. I The reason that you watch this movie is because of the relationship between Steven and Bloom. That's the heart of the film. That's why I keep coming back, because Mark Ruffalo and Adrian Brody are such captivating actors, but more than that, like the characters and how they interact with each other is infinitely exciting and interesting.
Yeah, man, fill out my petition to get Adrian Brody and Mark Ruffalo in a film together again.
I would like
'Cause
that.
they need to be in. They need to be in something. They need to. They
Also
need to keep this Hollywood duo perfection going.
happening.
And yeah, same with Ryan Gosling and Russell Crowe. Get them in another movie
Honestly,
together.
yes, that
Yeah,
was
great.
perfect. And I would also right now just like to be like, how the fuck in all of our talks about sibling dynamic movies did we not put the Darjeeling Limited on there?
Oh yeah, that would be a good one.
We
Well,
fucked up
we've
really
still
hard.
got time. We can
We
we
fucked
can
up really hard.
100%
We
add
might
an
have to
episode or switch it out,
we might
Like
have to
I'm
switch it out or add an episode, because I finished watching this movie and I was like, all I want to do is watch the Darjeeling Limited. Um Again,
Royal Tenenbaums too. It's all about siblings.
I know, but at the end he like fucks his sister. And it's weird.
Right. I mean,
I know they're
yes.
not
Like
like
his half.
biologically siblings, but like you grew up with
Yeah.
her. Like that's your sibling.
Yeah. It's a Marsha Brady moment, at least from the newer Brady Bunch movies. I guess
It's
all of
like
Wes
their
Anderson's
count.
movies have the siblings as a background. But yeah, the Darjeeling Limited is great. And yeah, we should cover movies that aren't just two siblings, but three siblings are movies are great. And there's probably even fewer of them out there than dual sibling movies. So yeah,
Yeah.
put it on the list.
Put it on the list. And while you're putting it on the list, I put mango in my mouth. Oh god. I was eating mango while I was trying to do a thing, and then the mango piece was bigger than I thought.
Oh dear.
So
Oh
anyways,
bother.
while you are putting Darjeeling Limited on the list, put some other things on your list, such as our not very often updated Instagram page, which is at Brother Sibling Movie, and our very
Mhm.
often updated YouTube page, which is also at Brother Sibling Movie. You can email us if you have thoughts or opinions, or ideas for future episodes. Who knows?
Yeah.
At brothersibling@gmail.com.
Email us. Tell us what you
Um,
think. Let us know.
Let us know. We would love it. Hopefully soon I'll have enough time and mental space to figure out what the fucking RSS feed is and actually sign us up for stuff so that we're not just on Spotify. Evan, where can
Everything in good time.
everything in good time? Evan, where can the gentle listeners find you?
You can find me everywhere on all the handle things as Art of Evan K. So come to Instagram to see some of the artwork I'm working on. Check me out on YouTube and see some process videos of said artwork. Yeah, Check out my portfolio site, artofevank.com, and find me on Letterboxd as Evan Kerna. That's Koehne.
A name
And
so impossible to spell, I got married young to change it.
yes. What about you, Mayor? Where can the good people find you and follow your journey?
Typically, I'm at a local agricultural extension office doing master gardener training. But if I'm not there and you feel compelled to find me on a social media platform, you can find me on Instagram at lawn_daddy_lives_here. Lawn Daddy lives here with underscores in between each of the words, even between lawn and daddy, because lawn is a modifier of daddy. It's the type of daddy I am. I'm a daddy of the lawn. Now, here's what I will leave you with. What we will leave you with. It's Evan. I love you very much.
I love you very much, Mary. I'm
Go
very
watch it.
happy to have a sibling that isn't conning me constantly.
How do you know that, though? You know what I'm
It's
saying?
true. You can never be sure.
I think we've firmly established I'm the Steven in this relationship.
Yeah.
Here's what I will leave you with, listeners. Go watch the
I feel
movie.
like Blue Man, I feel like Steven in many ways. But
Yeah.
yeah, I definitely heavily identify with Bloom in a lot of ways, for sure.
Yeah. Well, here's what I'll leave all of our beautiful listeners with is a suggestion, nay, a mandate. Go watch a movie with your sibling.
Hey, go watch a movie with your sibling is what I would say back to you if you said something
Precisely.
like that as a mandate to our listeners.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, it's a
So
beautiful thing. Nice. Well, this has been a pleasure talking about one of the great unsung movies of
best
the early
movies
2000s
ever.
with you, Mayor. So
Dude,
let's do this again next week.
I would love to do this again next week.
It's in the plan. That's how we do it. On that note, ladies and germs, thank you and good night. We love you.
Oh, please edit out the burp. Mom will be so mad.
I don't know. It was a pretty good one. It
That
had
was
solid. It was
like a
like if I was
40.
gonna put up a scorecard to it, I would have given it like an 8.8.
I would have given that one like a 4.2. That was not a good
Really?
burp. Yeah, that was not a good
Damn.
burp. I could burp
I
so
mean,
much
okay, it
better
didn't
than
have
that.
like force. It didn't have the kind of force, but it was solid all the way through. It didn't
No,
lilt
it
at the
was.
end. It was like
It had a solid timbre to it.
through
Timbre
the whole
to it.
thing. Yeah.
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 No,
What
I
it
feel like
lacked in volume, it made up for in consistency.
inconsistency. Yeah, I feel like I can burp a lot better than that, but also like mom is always on me about burping.
Yeah, well,
But I'm
you
so
can't be
good
perfect.
at it. I've never tried to be perfect. I've just tried not to be yelled at. There's a difference.
Come back next week when Meredith tells us all about their new professional burping career.
Oh man. No, thank you. All right. It's fucking 11 o'clock here, man. I gotta go to bed. I gotta go to sleep.
Yes.
I love you
Me too.
so much. I'm so thrilled we got to talk about this movie together.
I love you so much. So I look forward to the next one. To all of our listeners, bye.
Bye.
Fuck you
Fuck you
guys.
guys. Oh my god, fuck you guys.